Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the April 20th council meeting to order. I'm going to ask everyone to join me in a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. And today is a significant day, as everyone knows the verdict has come in the George Floyd case. So I would just ask that we all pray for peace. It's been quite a time for everybody having to relive this over and over again. So let's keep them all in our thoughts and prayers. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Jackie, will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mayor Velardo?
Here.
Vice Mayor Evans?
Here.
Ms. Russell?
Here.
Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Here.
Mr. Haskins?
Here.
Mr. Redmond?
Present.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the April 6th meeting? And if so, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second?
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Financial statements from March the 21st. I just need a motion, acknowledge, and receipt.
So moved. Second?
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Jackie, I believe we have some correspondence this evening.
Yes, we do, Mayor. We have received a letter on 4/13/2021 from RRT, which is being submitted as a formal notice and request to withdraw the letter of appeal regarding the Road, Rivers, and Trails Overbuild project at 118-120 Main Street.
Awesome. I don't believe that calls for action, so I am happy that everybody got to work that out, and it's going to be a positive outcome for everybody.
Okay, I also have from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control, permit request from RJM Management LLC, doing business as Lear's Prime Market and Patio at 740 Main Street, Milford, Ohio, 45150. Do we request to have a hearing?
Make a motion to do nothing. Second?
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this takes us to our first public comment section. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to address council, now would be the time. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, hello, hit that like button, let us know you're there. We'll try to track for comments, and if we can answer those, we'll do our best to respond live or in writing as soon as possible. Mr. Lenahan,
Hi, everyone.
how are you, sir?
Good, thank you. John Lenahan, 5364 South Milford Road. I just have a procedural question. Some of the ordinances that we're going to discuss later haven't been read yet, or at least in their new text, and I'm just wondering if there's another chance for public discussion should it be needed before those go to vote, or is this the only chance that it's needed?
This is your only chance for public discussion.
Okay.
We've had the committee meetings and everything have been open to the public, so.
I know, but at the last committee meeting, there was no text that was proposed. I mean, there was a proposal about going back to Mr. Minier for redrafting, but I don't think the content of that ordinance was ever read at a public meeting, so I don't know if anyone here is aware of what's actually being proposed in 2021-80 or 2021-80, or the other ones, for that matter. Were those read at a public meeting?
This is the public meeting where they'll be read. They'll be coming out of committee.
So they'll be read, and there's no chance then to discuss once the content of those proposed ordinances has been.
It becomes a council decision at that time.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Good evening.
Hello, Scott Humphreys, 155 Cleveland Ave. As it pertains to this proposed amendment, I mentioned in an earlier committee meeting that I took it upon myself to drive this alternate route we're proposing that the canoe company take. And it only took 2.3 miles to go from the end of the South Milford Bridge to the intersection of Mill and Main Street where they'd come down. Again, 2.3 miles is all the difference that is. And they wouldn't have to travel down a densely packed residential street. In that 2.3 miles, they could bring dozens of busloads of potential customers past at least 30 restaurants, taverns, places to eat. You know, I've got a list of those I passed out at one of the committee meetings. For just 2.3 miles, this business located outside of Milford, which everyone here will agree we have nothing against, and we're not trying to run them out of Milford. We love being associated with them. They could take this alternate path down through Main Street, a safer, wider street, and provide dozens of daily potential customers, hundreds over the course of the 5 to 6 months that they're open, past the shops, dining opportunities, and all the different markets. Markets, Bishop's Bicycles, Village Market, coolest toys on earth. Would love for them to take advantage of this 2.3 extra miles. Currently, the route only takes them by one business, Little Miami. I mean, think how much a local business like Road River and Trails would benefit from the hundreds of people that they would bring by over the course of the season. You know, you can't see their shop from where the bus goes now down Mill and Main Street. You know, this is a local business that celebrated 10 years in their current location. And just last week, they almost begged City Council for assistance to expand their shop. What does the canoe company have that Road River and Trail doesn't? You know, all we're asking for is a business located outside of Milford to drive a measly 2.3 miles down Main Street and showcase all we have to offer. Since last week's council meeting, my wife and I have had all kinds of neighbors come up to us and tell us how much they appreciated, you know, bringing this up and how concerned they were with the bus traffic and potentially truck traffic that would be coming down if this amendment is passed. People in Mound were coming up to us, telling us how big a problem it was for them to get out of Mound onto Mill Street during the 5 to 6 months the buses are running. We've even had a lady who works at SIM, you know, tell us how happy we were, or she was, that we brought this up. Because there's a lot of residents over there that are hard of hearing, and they wouldn't happen to hear a bus, you know, if something tragic were to happen. And while everyone's aware you can't legislate for or against a specific business, if this amendment's passed, it opens the door for all the other trucks and landscaping businesses to use the cut-through. Once they see the buses coming through with no consequences, they'll follow. They already operate on a beg forgiveness principle. Chief Mills and Mr. Manier said they hadn't written a ticket for over 20 years using the cut-through street. And when you turn onto South Milford down there by the bridge, one of the first signs you see is Milford's Trail City, welcoming cyclists. This through street is used by hundreds of cyclists in that 5 to 6 month summer period. Anyone that's spent time on their front porch or front yard along the cut-through know they travel in packs 2 and 3 wide coming down that street. And there are several tight blind curves as you travel down the through street in front of SIM that have limited line of sight. You know, if the bus or the cyclist one were swinging wide over the double yellow, who knows what could happen.
Sir, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm getting a message that they don't think the microphone is on. Would you mind checking that, and you keep going? Yeah, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I don't think it's on, Jackie. There we go.
Okay.
I'm sorry, sir.
We could hear you, though, don't worry.
The people, the people in the audience and ICRC and Facebook couldn't hear you.
Okay. Webster's defines an accident as an unexpected happening causing loss or injury, which is not due to any fault or misconduct on the part of the person injured, but for which a legal relief may be sought. In a prior meeting, Mr. Manier confirmed it possible that Milford could be implicated legally if there was an accident involving a child or one of the trucks and buses cutting through Milford. I don't think here anyone would want to risk that type of tragedy or financial impact on the city. And again, we have nothing against the canoe company. It's located outside of Milford. We welcome their involvement in the community. There's just so much potential if they take this different route. We're asking that the amendment not be passed and they travel that 2.3 miles and take advantage of the opportunity to ensure our safety along that route while still showcasing all that Milford has to offer. Make the decision that's best for our community and not just the business located outside of town. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Good evening.
Hello again. I've seen you guys more than my family the last month. But I appreciate everybody's listening and making me feel welcome and comfortable. So, to the points that they had made there.
Can't hear, the mic is,
Oh, hello.
there you go.
1, 2. So I've driven those routes, those proposed routes. Sadly, the one that comes the long way through Main Street there in Old Milford, it's going to be the last route that I take. It will end up being the longest and likely the most dangerous. The reason I say that, and you may have driven that route with your car, but driving a school bus is much, much different than driving a car. Anyway, I would estimate that route's going to take me about 25 minutes to get through, which is about 10 minutes longer one way than what I'm currently dealing with now. Likely the order that we would do it was we'd have to go up the highway, which will save that 5 minutes. I don't even know if I'd go that route anyway, because there's 2 railroad tracks that Ralph Hodges highlighted last week, which will cause another issue and thereby extend that length of the trip. So we'll likely be forced to go all the way through Newtown and then up 50 to get to that put-in spot, which is a bummer. And I've calculated this out, and it's going to cost me quite a bit of money at the end of the day, which is one thing, but it definitely will ruin part of that experience that my customers get that they've become accustomed to over the last 15 years, and really over the last 30 years with Scenic's entire existence, which is really unfortunate. Showcasing those houses and then the businesses, I would love for all those businesses to be on that route. It just, my job is in logistics. That's what my job is. And it's going to be the last one. So the order of operations, we're going to take that long route around 50. If that doesn't work for whatever reason, then we're going to take the highway, and then we'd come through Old Milford there. The reason I say that is not the optimal one and less safe, mind you, we're going over 2 railroad tracks just to get through two chamber. And anyway, when you're coming through Old Milford, how many crosswalks are there? 5 or 6? Do people always use them? I don't know. But as far as I can tell, that street's pretty damn packed with parking on both sides. There is a lot of traffic down there, which is great, a lot of foot traffic. But I see that being a hell of a lot more problematic than what we're doing coming through Cleveland. I had spoke with Mr. Manier, and at the last committee meeting, I think we all kind of agreed and discovered that this is not a safety issue coming through Cleveland. It's more of a kind of right does he have. We don't want to see the vehicles coming across, coming down our road. Look at all the damage that those things being overweight could do to the streets, and that I should pay my fair share. In my effort to find out what I can do, and looking through the ordinances and such, I discovered rather, the ability for the city manager or the council to allow an outside business to use their through street for a fee, and that fee was $10 per vehicle round trip. I'm asking the council to consider that as an option. I'd spoken with Mr. Manier about that very thing, and yes, it is possible. So that will then, I can justify that by the extreme costs that I'm going to incur by taking those buses a long route and losing multiple trips. And I'd be happy to pay my fair share, so to speak. I know that my customers do come back and they spend a lot of money in Old Milford. I don't know how I could ever calculate what the hell that is. But I encourage you to go by Little Miami Brewery on a Saturday this summer on a nice day, and at least start there. You can see how many of my customers patronize that local business. And I know a lot of people come back through Old Milford after their trip, just because they've recently discovered your town, and they love it. It's awesome, cute, quaint, fun, lots going on, so they like to come back and patronize those local businesses. So in addition to bringing business into Old Milford, I'm absolutely happy to pay a tax or that fee, whatever that is. I just would like to get your support, at least in exploring that as an option. Again, I've driven all those routes. I've driven through South Milford. I took one of my buses there a couple weeks ago because John had brought up basically it said that my buses can't make that turn, that 90-degree bend. I got it on videotape. In fact, with traffic coming the opposite direction, and they are very well inside the lines. That is not, they're plenty able to make that turn without crossing any double yellows or anything like that. That street, Cleveland, South Milford's plenty wide to cut through. I know that there is on-street parking there, and on occasion, more than occasion, people have to hop over, wait behind a car that's parked, and then go. That is not exclusive to my buses. That is for everyone. I do it in my personal truck. I've seen people do it in their cars. It's what you got to do on that road. But I would really ask you to consider or think about the fact that those big buses are driven by professional drivers with plenty of years of experience. They drive your kids to school in the morning. It's their entire career. They take it very, very seriously. Any infractions mean a very big deal to them. They don't tolerate much to get rid of that license. So they take their job very seriously. I take my job very seriously. I'm very responsive to any issues, which thankfully there really hasn't been any over the last 15 years, except for one incident that we noted a couple meetings back. And that was an anomaly, clearly. So we know it's not a safety issue. I'd like to participate. I have been a good neighbor. I love this city. This is an effective and efficient route for me and my business, and it will have a tremendous impact on my business if we have to redirect the majority of our traffic. While I've got the floor, I do want to thank the neighbors for participating in this, and obviously it means you four have been here every time, and I get it, and I appreciate it, and I want to let you know that this is not personal for me either. It's trying to run an effective, safe business, as I have been for the last 15 years. I will continue to do so, even if my bus gets kicked out of there. I will continue to be responsive. My little buses are still going to come through here. I take safety very, very seriously. And before you all leave, I know I offered it up, or was able to offer it up to one or two of you that hadn't taken it, but I'd like you to have my cell phone number. I've given it to anybody that's called me with any concerns. I am very responsive. I do give a damn. I don't want anything bad to happen. I want to be a good neighbor. I want to win-win. That's what I want. I think that's it. I think that's all I got. Any questions or concerns from the council for me?
I will say that being outside the committee, and obviously this was just presented last time to the rest of us who are not on the committee. There's 3 people on the committee who've heard a lot of this for the last year. I do feel your sincerity in wanting to really work and compromise, and I've heard lots of wonderful things about you trying to do all kinds of different things to come to some kind of compromise, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I think, for me, it's been hard too, because we've been put in a position now that we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. What is the right decision? It's also become this weird us versus them thing. Do we support business or do we support neighbors? And I don't think, I want to be very clear, I don't think that's what the real conversation is. I really believe what we're discussing here is if we want to allow commercial cut-through traffic, businesses that exist outside of Milford coming through Milford and ending up somewhere outside of Milford. And it's a tough decision for us, and I think all of us, we don't take this lightly, and we,
I
so.
don't think so either. I appreciate your guys' time and consideration here. I feel like it's been I think we've all been treated very fairly, and everyone's got an opportunity to hear it. And I know it's a tough decision. You're between a rock and a hard place. I get that. It's a weight on your shoulders, and I appreciate that. Like I said, I know it's nothing personal. I will continue to be a good neighbor. I will continue to be on the up and up and above board as I always have been. This is my entire livelihood. My entire family relies on it. So I take it very seriously, but at the same time, there is a difference between business and personal relationships, and that's where we're at here. And I feel, like I said before, when I first walked up, thank you guys for making me feel welcome, heard, comfortable. I very much appreciate it. But considering that it is a business thing, and we did more or less admit that this is not a safety issue at all, I'm happy to pay my way. Kim, you're looking a little concerned at me. What do you got for me?
Well, not to speak out, I do think that there was some concern for safety. So to just say that this isn't a safety concern, I would disagree with that statement, but that's all.
All right.
We can disagree.
Differing opinions.
We can have different
We can
opinions,
disagree.
absolutely.
I'll just have to point to my record for the last 15 years and over the last 30 years
I know.
with 0 incidents,
I know.
1 anomaly. In the previous 15, I don't know who was running it then. I don't know if Scenic had any issues at that point. Anyway, yeah, we can have different opinions on that. Ms. Manier noted at last committee meeting, it's not a safety issue, but I should pay my fair share, absolutely. And I would be happy to do that if the council is open to discussing what that might look like.
Thank you, Mr. Merkel.
Thank you all very much. I
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Ryan.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just a couple clarifications, and I think Kim made one of them. One of the first topics I brought up, I think, to the safety committee was it being a safety issue? And I've also acknowledged that what is safe or unsafe to me is somewhat subjective to what my experiences are. And what I call unsafe, someone else could call perfectly safe. So we may agree to disagree on whether it's safe or unsafe, but to say it's not a safety issue, I think, is an oversimplification. The other thing that I wanted to mention is when you were filming the buses that day, I was home, and you spoke to my wife, actually, when you were out there filming. My point when I brought up the buses having difficult time navigating that turn was never about one bus coming around the turn. In fact, I clarified, I think, that statement by saying all those school buses go by all in one direction at the same time, and all the school buses come by back the other way at the same time. What happens often with these buses is they come by at the same time. And while the road the lanes actually widen somewhat as you go around that bend, wider than they are on the straightaway, it is tight to bring 2 full-size commercial vehicles around that bend at the same time. And what they often have to do is one of them stops while the other one navigates the turn, and then the other one comes. So even the drivers who, and I'm not challenging their safety record, acknowledge that there is a need for additional safety around that bend to the extent that they stop and often stop traffic so that they both can come around the bend at different times. And, I brought up once in Ryan, I know you make yourself available, and I appreciate that. We called you 3 times last year. Twice when the guys ran over the wall, and once a third time when the trailer with the kayaks came over the wall. We happened to be outside. My wife called all 3 times. No one ever called back. And that's when I first emailed Pam Holbrook, I think, and spoke to, at least by email, Chief, about this topic. So we did try to get in touch, and no one responded to us about the concerns that we had at that time. And the last thing well, 2 more things. One is the exception that you were mentioning. I think my understanding of the ordinance where there's an exception where you can kind of pay, I did speak to someone about that this week, not here, in another township, and the understanding that I have from that is that that's meant to be on an exception basis. It's not meant to be, hey, I'm just going to pay a $10 kind of round-trip fee to bring vehicles that are too large or too heavy or whatever the ordinance would dictate through this area as a cut-through, and that it's more for a short-term, temporary duration, like you might have for a construction, for example, where you need to bring trucks through a certain way or equipment through a certain way. And I think it also calls for having police available and paid police available at that time to ensure that that passage is safe, even on an exception basis. And the last thing, and Ryan, this is more to you. I found out this week that my wife's best friend, parents live on your street, and Bo and Sue Wall. And it's a really quiet street. It's a cul-de-sac. I've never been there. They talk about how quiet and nice it is. And I guess I just want to ask, like, how would you feel if your kids are out in that front yard and I'm turning an RV around 100 times driving past your house, when you could say, look, just go down around the other way. And I know it's a cul-de-sac, but it's the same idea. I mean, my kids play in the yard. When we moved here, we asked about traffic. I checked the ordinances 4 years ago. We knew that there were no through trucks. So this isn't like a pre-existing condition. This was something that we knew from the beginning was not able to be a cut-through for large trucks. And they weren't 4 years ago, 4 summers ago. At the time, it was only the short buses. So I also want to appeal, and you mentioned the first time you were here, you're a parent, you've got a business, a family to support. I also have an obligation to the safety of my family, and I just want you to put yourself in my shoes and think about how you would feel on a personal level if someone was bringing trucks through your neighborhood, all summer long, all day long, and not only trucks, but people screaming the whole time they were on them. And I get it, people are having a good time, but there's an element to this that goes beyond just the ordinance piece. And I want you to just please have that in mind as we're talking about an exception, and is that really kind of the path forward when we talk about kind of being good neighbors. So thank you all, Ryan. Thank
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question 1 second? Can you clarify something you just said?
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out here from the citizen's perspective. You were saying 4 years ago the little buses were coming through?
When we moved in December of 2016. So in 2017 was the first spring summer season, and at that time, the first season that we were here, from what I recall, it was all small buses and the trucks and the trailers.
Right.
And the second summer, it was the rental yellow buses. And then last summer it became the owned blue buses.
So what my question is now is, and obviously you can't speak for everyone who's here, someone else can clarify. Are you okay with the little buses? Are you okay with you want no buses?
No, I'm speaking for me at this point. My personal feeling, I do not have an objection to the small buses, and never came here to this meeting and never called, Pam to start all this about the small buses.
It's just the large, full-size school
Commercial
buses.
buses that have, in my observation, have difficulty navigating and also go against kind of what the city's ordinances were. So I understand the enforcement challenge if, how do you know what, who's coming through with a dually, that F-350 we talked about? Is it a resident that lives down there? Is it someone cutting through? I understand that those small buses fit within that 5 or 7 ton limit, and I understand the practicality of trying to enforce that. And I also think, my understanding when we rode the small buses, is those are the ones dropping off at Terrell Park, which is in Milford, and which then doesn't become a cut-through, then becomes doing business within the city. So I've never had an issue with the smaller buses. It's been the size of the large commercial buses or Type C, whatever they are, the large buses. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
Do I have another chance to go up here?
Sure.
Sorry. To answer John's question.
Is that something that you can answer with him, or do you have something new to say? Just trying to keep things
Yeah, I do
moving.
have something new to say.
Okay, go ahead.
Real quick to answer his question about how would I feel about, I wouldn't feel good about it. At the same time, I do have children, 2 to 14. I picked the house at a cul-de-sac, and that was part of the process, was thinking about my children. There's very little traffic down here. It's an obvious throughway. Cleveland or South Milford, big buses are not. It was a heavily trafficked road. I'd love to see a count, 'cause I'm sure we take up a very small fraction of total traffic throughout the year. But that is a heavily trafficked street. I wouldn't have picked it if I had those concerns. So I told you I explored the other possible routes to take these big buses. It likely would come down to taking that very long route through Newtown and up 50. I don't know how it'll pencil out at the end of this year and years going forward, but my first estimate, I know I'm going to take a big hit. If it were to come down to it, those big buses equal 3 little buses. I have 5 little buses, and I bought one more big bus at the end of last year, so I have 6 large buses. Hopefully I won't need to use them. Again, last year was an anomaly. We had to go half load on the buses, means twice the vehicles. So it'll be a return to normal this year, thankfully. But it could pencil out potentially that it makes sense for me to get rid of my big buses. And then I'm going all small buses, which means I've got 20 small buses running through that street. I know that would cost money too. I would say the likelihood of it at this point is slim, but I don't know. I have to pencil it out and see if that works out that way. I appreciate the allowance for my little buses all this while. Again, I appreciate the neighborly efforts by the city, this council, the neighbors here. So at the end of the day, yeah, thank you for at least allowing my little buses to come through. That's all I got.
Thank you again. Anybody else? Yeah? Good evening.
Hi.
Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Rebecca Shendich, 11 Mound Avenue. You think I'd remember by now. I'm trying. I think it's also, when we were doing the petition like last year, going up and down Cleveland, I couldn't believe the noise level of those trucks carrying those canoes and those buses. And so I don't think it's just a safety issue. It's just basically wanting a peaceful residential neighborhood. And they were like every 10 minutes. I was like, oh my God, is this what they deal with every day? It's quite noisy. And I also know that they have not used that Cleveland Avenue the entire existence. I'm a Terrace Park resident to Milford. We all did the canoeing when we were kids, so you're talking, 40 years. They were using the longer route prior to doing the cut through on Cleveland. So why did it ever get changed? I don't know. I wasn't in Milford, but it seemed to be no issue going the longer route for 2.3 miles. So I really don't see it as that huge of a deal, but that's just me.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good evening.
Hi, Darrell Donovan, 28 Worcester Pike. I think what we're all missing here is a really big picture. We got construction that's going to be going on 3 different places around that area. Garfield, you got High Street, you got Sem Villa. You're going to have a lot more traffic going down all these places on top of the buses. And again, I agree with everybody else here. I don't think we have a problem with the company, and I never met you, but I literally was the one that called and got 4 of your kayaks back for you last year.
That was you?
Yes. So I guess the bigger picture is we're going to have a lot more traffic going through those streets as it is. And I think the biggest thing we all forget to see is if you don't live on a street, you don't see a problem, and you make the decision sitting up there. You listen to us, but unless you live there, it's kind of hard to make that decision. And I feel sorry for you guys, because you're trying to keep, this on an even keel. I talked to Mark from Loveland Canoe, and he says they need to do their business. And I get that. But at the same time, remember the traffic congestion we're going to have in the next year or 2 on those streets, because living on Worcester, I know the traffic has changed drastically at the corner of 128 or 126 and Worcester, and the noise level. And I think I've talked to Jamie about that, and it's just, I guess you got to look at the bigger picture down the road. That's all I can say.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Jeanette, Kingsbury Street.
Will you go ahead and pull that microphone down so we can, I know, right? We could get you a stool, but,
No, that's fine. Can you hear me?
yeah.
I just was trying to clarify as everyone's speaking. We already know that Cleveland is a cut-through, from what I'm understanding. You say that it's a cut-through anyway. Is that what we're voting for, is whether or not it's a cut-through? Or it already is considered one? And then also just in general, being here for each of the meetings, last meeting, I thought we were rewriting something, but I didn't know what it was written. I guess we're going to go over that soon. And then you guys are going to be voting, so we won't have anything to say after that. So I'm just reiterating, the cut-through in general for any bigger vehicle will make a difference in the neighborhood for our summer fun, for us sitting out on our patios, listening to the birds, and all of a sudden, you may hear some major truck come through, or, let it be a cut-through, and that's going to affect everyone who lives on the street. And then over the last few years, the ordinances haven't been followed anyway. As you said, someone had said it was hard to deal with anyway, to be able to be sure if this car's going through or cutting through, or if they live there. So, it's going to be a difficult thing to manage if it does become a no cut through. But that's really what we're hoping for.
Thank you. Anybody else? Before we move on to business?
Can I say a couple things to
Of course.
clarify? I have prosecuted overweight trucks in the last 4 or 5 years using South Milford, so I wanted to correct that. I think Mr. Humphreys must have misunderstood me. Milford has sovereign immunity, and we can always get sued. There's a litigious society out there, and they think we have deep pockets, so we're all the subject of a lawsuit, but actually losing a lawsuit, that would be highly unlikely with the scenario he gave. Parking, we've got 2 ordinances tonight. One regarding parking, which obviously involves vehicles that are stationary. And we've got use of local streets, which obviously involves vehicles in motion. And parking, the rationale behind parking ordinances is not primarily a safety issue, it's primarily a aesthetic issue. And the rationale behind any time you have an ordinance that pertains to vehicles in motion, that's always primarily a safety issue. And again, I think sometimes it is forgotten that when we're dealing with use of the local streets, tonight we're amending, or we're presenting 33902A, which is the use of local streets as far as weight. 33903 pertains to vehicles in motion regarding dimensions, size, length, height, width, that type of thing. So the only thing, just to clarify, the only thing we're doing regarding 2021-80, that pertains to parking only. And it pertains to parking of trucks and semi-trailers only, not RVs, just trucks and semi-trailers. And all it does is increase the long-standing 12,000 pounds to 14,000. That's all it does. And the 2021-81, which also, in order to be compatible, raises it from 12,000 to 14,000 regarding vehicles in motion using local streets. So I just wanted to clarify that. And this 2021-81, I have no idea if it's going to be passed tonight, but it did come out of committee, and it was published on the city's webpage more than 24 hours before tonight's meeting. So all the language in there was available for review by the public.
Any questions for Mr. Manier?
So the meeting I was here at last week, I believe, I was told the original weight limit was 10,000 being increased to 14,000. And the statement was that
12
that
to
was,
14.
well, we were told 10 at the meeting, just so you know. It doesn't matter, 12, 10, but it's going up to 14. And the reason I was told 14 is to accommodate larger personal vehicles. I've been in the automotive business all my life. Show me one vehicle that's personal that's 14,000 pounds. Show me. Because even a F-450 weighs around 8,000 pounds.
It's GVWR and it's 14.
And if you add
That's all.
the gross vehicle weight, meaning you pack this truck, which I doubt most people are going to bring all that home to their house to park overnight. So I guess my question is, what's the purpose of making it a higher number?
This is, I was not in that committee. My understanding of changing it to the gross vehicle weight was the current weight value of the trucks as they are, not loaded. These big Fords and these dualies do weigh that is their gross vehicle weight. So if a resident owned one of those trucks, in theory, as the ordinance was written, he could not drive it home.
Yeah, there's no trucks out there that when you say gross vehicle
No,
weight, you're
it's just on
talking
their
about.
sticker, which is what they would go off of when, so
Right.
that's the only reason.
Yeah.
And that's a personal,
I'm just saying, I
That's-
guarantee you
that
there's
was the-
nobody bringing one of those home to their house.
That's the sticker,
Still under
that's the weight on the sticker.
Okay, just letting you know.
Okay. That will conclude public comments. We're going to move on to standing committee reports. Public Services, Mrs. Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me, we had our Public Service Committee meeting on April 14th. I called the meeting to order at 5:01 PM. Present was myself, Mayor Amory Velardo, and Councilmember Ted Haskins. From staff, we had City Law Director Mike Menier, City Manager Michael Doss, Assistant City Manager Pam Holbrook, Police Chief Jamie Mills, Sanitary Sewer Superintendent Dave Walker. Visitors were Ryan Merkel with Scenic River Canoe Excursions, along with several residents. We approved the proceedings from the April 5th, 2021 Public Services Committee minutes. Ms. Velardo made a motion to approve. This was seconded by myself. The first item on the agenda was the High Street stormwater discussion. Mr. Doss stated that Phil Ditchin, developer of the High Street residential homes, approached the city about assisting with labor costs associated with establishing a new stormwater line on High Street. The new stormwater line is a result of the new residential development for 4 homes on High Street, presently under construction. Mr. Ditchin proposed that the city cover the labor cost and he would cover the material cost for the stormwater line. Mr. Doss stated that the city explore the possibility of performing the stormwater line labor in-house, but staff concluded that the project was not feasible for city labor. Mr. Doss indicated that the city solicited estimates for the project, but the preliminary estimates indicated that the project would have to go out for bid under prevailing wage. Mr. Doss further indicated that the city would be responsible for constructing a new stormwater line on Sycamore Street to accommodate any new stormwater line on High Street. According to Mr. Doss, the projected cost for the Sycamore line replacement would be at least $100,000. Mr. Doss, along with staff, concluded that the city should not be involved in the High Street stormwater line project. The city needs to focus resources on the Sycamore line replacement. The committee agreed to accept the recommendation of Mr. Doss and Mr. Walker to not provide city assistance with the new stormwater line on High Street. Next, we talked about the Wallace Waterline Engineering quote. Mr. Doss provided the committee with 2 quotes from Branstetter Carroll Engineering for surveying, mapping, and preliminary engineering design services for the Wallace Avenue to Garfield Avenue discharge line in the amount of $14,000 and the Wallace Avenue supply line in the amount of $22,500. Mr. Doss indicated that both projects were necessary in advance of construction for the new Wallace Avenue Water Tower. These lines will assist with handling the capacity and hydraulics associated with the future water tower servicing the city. Mr. Doss stated that Branstetter Carroll was hired by the city in late 2019 to provide an analyst and establish a preliminary engineering report and opinion of probable cost for the entire scope of the project. Mr. Doss explained that because of the recent analysis and familiarity from the preliminary engineering report conducted by Branstetter Carroll, he believes that they are best suited to provide the engineering for the discharge and supply line projects. Mr. Doss anticipated using the preliminary design and engineering to obtain more points during the evaluation and scoring of the OPWC grant applications for funding in the next round. These points will be critical in advancing both projects into the district for grant funding. Mr. Doss recommended that the committee advance the 2 quotes from Branstetter Carroll to City Council for consideration and adoption. Mrs. Velardo stated that her preference would be to obtain 3 quotes for the 2 projects. I asked if the surveying and design work needed to be done soon. Mr. Doss replied that that was not necessary, but he wanted to get the preliminary design, surveying, and engineering complete before the August OPWC application submission deadline. Mr. Haskins asked if this was the same engineering firm that the city recently vetted for the water tower project. Mr. Doss indicated yes. Without further committee discussion, the committee agreed to recommend that the law director draft an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Branstetter Carroll in the total amount of $36,500 for engineering services associated with Wallace Avenue to Garfield discharge line and Wallace Avenue supply line.
Second.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Mr. Haskins.
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Velardo.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda were buses, through traffic, and section revisions to the previously proposed ordinance 2021-81 discussion. Mr. Manier explained that the current ordinance needs to be changed to reflect proposed ordinance 2021-80 related to increasing the gross vehicle weight from 10,000 pounds to 14,000 pounds. Mr. Manier stated that no vehicle over 14,000 pounds will be permitted on city streets except trucks using city streets for deliveries and drop-offs within the city. I stated the previous proposed ordinance would have exempted buses traversing in the city. I am proposing changing the language to state no commercial vehicles weighing more than 14,000 pounds could use city streets. Mr. Haskins stated that he was concerned with the practice of cut-through and that his personal definition of a cut-through is starting at point A outside the city and ending at point B outside the city without stopping inside the city. I noted that any decisions to change the existing ordinance will not only impact Cleveland Avenue, but other streets within the city. Mrs. Velardo offered a compromise that commercial vehicles under 14,000 pounds are permitted to travel on city streets. Mr. Doss asked Mr. Merkel with Scenic River Canoe Excursions for the weight of the small buses. Mr. Merkel replied under 14,000 pounds. Various residents publicly commented on the issues. Comments included support from the residents for allowing buses on Cleveland Avenue. Those residents stated that they were not adversely impacted by the buses traveled and routes by Scenic River Excursion. Other comments reflected concern over safety for residents of the South Milford neighborhood due to the increasing presence of the full-size buses used by Scenic River Canoe Excursions. I proposed the following language to address the issue. No person shall operate a vehicle exceeding a size specified in section 339.03 or exceeding a gross vehicle weight rating, GVWR, of 14,000 pounds upon any street in the city other than a state route, except those local streets designated as a truck route and marked as such by appropriate signage indicating no through commercial vehicles. Drivers of such vehicles may provide services or visit commercial establishments for the purpose of eating, refueling, or conducting other necessary business, provided such commercial establishments provide adequate off-street parking to accommodate such vehicles, and provided such vehicles are only operated in a reasonable way between the designated route and the place of delivery, pickup, services, or such commercial establishment, or otherwise directed by a police officer. School buses as defined in section 301.35 shall be expressly exempt from this section. The committee agreed to the proposed language as presented and made a recommendation that the law director draft an ordinance amending section 339.02 of the codified ordinances of the city of Milford regarding use of local streets.
Second.
Can I clarify one thing before we vote on that?
Of course.
So, just to be sure, because I wasn't at the committee meeting, so this would allow the short buses, only allow the large buses if they're going to Terrell Park. Is that correct?
No. You can't operate any bus, you can't operate anything over 14,000 pounds unless it fits in with some of these exceptions.
So even though they're doing business in the city, they'd have to use a state route?
Hmm?
The big buses would have to use a state route even though they're doing business in the city?
Well, the question is, are they doing business in the city?
I said if they're going to Terrell Park, if he's doing a drop-off at Terrell Park.
Well, they're visiting a commercial establishment. The whole purpose is, their cut-through is not defined in here. Commercial vehicles aren't defined in here. The purpose, from what I understood to be, is you can't start from point A outside of Milford and your end destination being point B outside of Milford without somehow doing business or conducting business or contributing to the economy within the city of Milford.
Okay,
That was my understanding what council was looking for.
okay. That's all.
Is it clear? Do you,
I think so.
because I'm still not clear.
I think that's the yes.
So what this ordinance is saying then, correct me if I'm wrong, is that nothing over 14,000 pounds will be allowed to cut through Cleveland or anywhere in Milford. If
And
you're
they do
outside of,
business.
if
They
you're
do
outside of
business.
Milford, and you're going somewhere else outside of Milford, you're not allowed to do that.
But if they were dropping off in Milford, they could drive their buses.
Okay, can I read it? Not for passage or adoption, but can I read it? Part of it. Yeah, we can't control State Route 28 or we can't control US 50. We can only control local streets. Drivers of such vehicles may provide services to and may deliver to and pick up from goods or property not located on a designated truck route, or may visit commercial establishments for the purpose of eating, refueling, or conducting such other necessary business, provided such commercial establishment provides adequate off-street parking to accommodate such vehicles, and provided such vehicles are only operated in a reasonable way between the designated route and the place of delivery, pickup, service, or such commercial establishment, or is otherwise directed by a police officer, or may perform such other legitimate business or act other than passage through the city. So if that definition to me means that if your endpoint is within the city of Milford and you're actually doing business in the city of Milford, but I think, I don't know. Somebody say something?
It's not business.
We're discussing this now, but thank you. Mike, can you use your microphone too when you talk, please?
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm clear. I mean, if he's dropping off in Milford, that's doing business in
That's
Milford.
doing business in Milford.
Well,
It wouldn't be any different than-
this is what we have to do, and when we're preparing legislation, I made some notes here. I've attended more than 900 council meetings, and I've prepared conservatively 4,500 ordinances, and I think this is probably the hardest one I've ever worked on. I think what we have to establish is if a truck is outside of Milford, or anything over 14,000 pounds outside of Milford, and even if the end point is within the city of Milford, but they don't conduct any business in the city of Milford, do we want to allow that or not? In other words, just example, we're using the primary example here of Terrell Park. Do we want to allow a truck, and I'm just stating what I'm trying to find out what council wants to do. If the bus starts out over 14,000 pounds, starts outside the city of Milford, drives through South Milford, Cleveland Avenue, and the end point is Terrell Park, and they make no stops in between, is that something council wants to permit? My understanding, I mean, if they stop it somewhere along the line and conduct business, this ordinance would permit that. But if they're dropping off, and again, I'm not taking a position one way or another, I'm just stating what I believe the ordinance allows. If they're stopping at Terrell Park and they conduct no business in between, and they're not paying any money to the city in Milford in the form of taxes or reparations or anything like that, do we want to allow that? And that's what I'm seeking guidance from council.
I think for me, what gets confusing then is because if we allow, this again, we're talking about the canoe business here, again, nothing personal. What stops Evans from wanting to do the same thing?
Or
But
can
they
Madison
can if
Tree
they're-
drop off can Madison Tree drop off a tree at Terrell Park?
Yeah, right? I mean, that's where the debate
Yeah, so
becomes.
I think that should be allowed. I think if they're going there, they're
They're
dropping
doing
off
business
people
in
in
the
the
city
city.
of
That's-
Milford.
To me, that's doing business in the city.
They're doing
But is
Other routes
there
should
any
not be
business
allowed.
taking place in Milford, like actual transaction of money? That's the problem. That's where we're getting tricky, because there is no business. There is there's a physical location being used, but there's no commercial activity, which requires the transfer of money, at least as I understand it. And so what I get concerned about is it is a side thing. If we allow Scenic River to do it, why can't Evans do it then? And why can't
would-
the tree company do it? Just cut through Cleveland as much as they
They're not
want.
gonna, they have to stop someone in the city for a purpose. I guess is what I'm
Right.
thinking. Okay, I'm good.
So yes,
I'm good.
that's where I get, so again, as I heard, the little buses seem to be okay, but it's the big buses is what the issue is, and that's where we're debating.
Well, see, I'm gonna have a problem enforcing this, because the way it's written now, it permits stopping off at a restaurant or to get gas or to, at Target or, Walmart to conduct business there. But the way it's written now, and I'm not married to this, but the way it's written now, Scenic River would not be able to use South Milford because they're not transacting business within the city,
Just the big buses.
The big buses,
the big buses.
the big buses.
The little buses are
The
permitted.
little buses would be permitted, but not the big buses.
Even if they don't conduct business in Milford, the little buses
The
are
little buses
permitted.
would be, it's the big buses.
It's dropping off.
I guess still, I'm thinking if Sophie stops and fills up his
Right.
gas tank.
So if we're not clear on this, then we need to table it, and we need to talk about it some more. But just to reiterate, so there's no misunderstanding, if we pass this tonight, Scenic River, because they're here, and anybody else in that same position would not be able to use Cleveland Avenue with trucks over 14,000 pounds. Because they're not conducting business in Milford.
Okay, just so that we're vetting this through all the way, if a company was going to come and donate something and drop it off because they're not exchanging cash, they would not be allowed.
What?
Is that your interpretation?
Yeah, state and federal.
Yeah, I would say anything over 14,000
Yeah,
pounds.
because, and that's the whole reason, because now we're talking about a cut-through. There's many ways to get around Milford.
Right.
Right.
So
There's
if
many
they're-
ways. So if
if
they're coming down
in-
Cleveland and they're gonna drop it off at Sem, then yeah, because that's along the route, like he's saying.
Yeah,
Right.
That's the thing.
right.
Yeah, this is only our streets.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can get to Terrell Park, right, multiple ways. There's not just one way to get to Terrell Park, and that's what we're trying. I think what we all got confused about is we started taking sides of like this business or the people. But the real question is, do we want to allow commercial activity down residential streets as a cut through? That, to me, is what we're
14,000.
really voting on? Do we want to let commercial activity take place on residential streets as cut-throughs? Not that we're going to stop any business from doing things, because there's many entry points and exit points in the city of Milford.
Okay.
Well, and also, you can always post, and I wouldn't want to bet for the citizens that live on that street to prove it, but you can always put a sign on a street saying through trucks. Now, that probably will never happen in actuality, but you can do that.
Okay. So Kim has requested a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Haskins,
Okay.
second, okay.
To do what?
Draft the ordinance.
To draft the ordinance.
This
Coming out of
isn't, we're not
committee.
voting on it
It's just
right
coming
now.
out of committee.
It's just to draft it.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. There being no further business, the meeting adjourned at 6:15 with a motion from Mr. Haskins, seconded by myself, and we all agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Administrative Services, Vice Mayor Evans.
See how fast I can read this. Yes, we met on April 15th at 5 o'clock. Present were myself, Sandy Russell, Kim Chamberlain, and Michael Doss, City Manager. We approved the proceedings from the February 25th meeting. We talked about the 2022 Claremont County Public Health Contract. Mr. Doss presented the 2022 Claremont County Public Health Contract with the City of Milford. He reminded the committee that the city contracts annually with Claremont County Public Health to provide health and inspection services for Milford. The services include health inspections of businesses, sanitary sewer plumbing inspections, vaccinations, and other various health services. He also stated that the 2022 contract is in the amount of $29,349.11. I inquired about the frequency of inspections conducted by the health department. Mrs. Russell thought her experience was about twice a year, but that was Hamilton County. Mr. Doss agreed with Mrs. Russell and stated that it is approximately the same for Claremont County unless there are lots of complaints. So the committee agreed to recommend that the law director draft an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Claremont County Public Health in the amount of $29,349.11 for public health services for the 2022 calendar year.
Second.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Next, we discuss future funding for public improvements. Mr. Doss presented the committee with information obtained from the Claremont County Auditor's Office regarding millage and estimated tax revenue from a potential tax levy associated with public services. Mr. Doss stated that a proposed public services levy for a term of 5 years would net revenue proceeds from anywhere between $950,000 to $1.4 million, depending on the amount of the millage. For example, Mr. Doss was advocating for a 1.25 mill levy that would net revenue proceeds of $234,442 annually, or $1,172,210 over a term of 5 years. According to Mr. Doss, the tax revenue proceeds could be used to pave roads, install curbing, provide park improvements, or enhance existing park and recreation activities. Future budgeted monies would be reappropriated for other project services or be added to the tax revenue generated by a public services levy for a large-scale road or recreational project. Mr. Doss emphasized that any proposed public service levy was in the preliminary stages but would need to be acted upon legislatively prior to mid-June to qualify for the November ballot. Mr. Doss reminded the committee that the legislative process is a two-stage process requiring two separate ordinances. I stated that I believe the park levy was the best approach for consideration. My understanding was that citizens would maybe not support a levy related to road and street paving because of the 1% income tax already they feel like is going to those improvements. I thought that the city should focus on potential tax revenue proceeds to our existing parks and in particular the Milford Main site. Ms. Chamberlain and Mrs. Russell agreed the city should focus attention to the Milford Main site. Mr. Doss stated that the city is already in the process of assessing all the roads and streets in Milford. The study will provide the city with a rating system based on the existing condition of each road and street. The result of the study will assist the city with future capital planning and budgeting for street and road improvements. I expressed interest in creating a priority list for Milford parks and use that information to share with the public to support a park levy in November. The committee agreed to schedule a future meeting to create a priority list for the Milford park system and continue to explore the potential for a park levy. With no further business, we adjourned at 5:24.
Nice job. Thank you very much. Safety Services, Mr. Redmond.
Safety Services Committee meeting minutes from April 15th, 2021. Mr. Mitchell called the meeting to order at 5:35. Present were myself, Ms. Evans, and Mr. Mitchell, as well as City Manager Michael Doss and several residents. Proceedings. We approved the proceedings from the April 5th, 2021 Safety Services Committee minutes. Mr. Redmond made a motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Mitchell. Ms. Evans abstained. Truck weight limits as proposed in Ordinance 2021-80. Mr. Doss stated that the City Law Director, Mike Menier, drafted language for a proposed ordinance related to amending Section 35.07 regarding parking and storage of vehicles. Mr. Doss said that the language in the proposed ordinance only pertains to parking and storage and does not pertain to the use of local streets, which is set forth in 339.02. The language increases the gross vehicle weight for semi-trailers and trucks from 10,000 to 14,000 pounds. Ms. Evans stated that this is the same weight increase that has been discussed in prior Safety Service Committee meetings, and Mr. Mitchell affirmed. Mr. Doss mentioned that this draft language does not include any items addressing the recreational vehicles, RVs, and that Mr. Menier and Ms. Holbrook were working on draft language for that subject. Without further committee discussion, the committee agreed to recommend that the Law Director draft an ordinance amending Section 351.07 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Milford regarding parking and storage of vehicles, increasing the GVWR for semi-trailers and trucks to 14,000 pounds.
Second.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Mr. Haskins,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Velardo.
Yes.
We moved on next to pedestrian crossing and red light stoppage at State Route 126, US 50 discussion. I presented a topic mentioned by a citizen at a previous city council meeting regarding pedestrian bicycle safety concerns involving vehicles at the intersection of State Route 126 and US 50. Mr. Doss stated that several improvements were recently made at the intersection, including a four-way stop, crosswalk signal relay for pedestrians and bicycles, as well as a signage indicating yield to pedestrians. Mr. Doss indicated that since both roads are state routes, vehicles must stop at a red light before turning right on red at all intersections. Mr. Doss stated that he spoke to Chief Jamie Mills about the situation, and Chief Mills affirmed that ODOT concluded that motorists can perform a right on red at that intersection. Mr. Doss believes that the issue is likely related to motorists not adhering to the traffic laws and yielding to pedestrians at the intersection red lights. Darrell Donovan stated that the turn signal coming from Indian Hill area across the bridge doesn't hold very long and stops up traffic during peak times. Rebecca Suddage spoke about the cars not even stopping at the red light crossing the bridge into Milford. Mr. Doss believes that the issue is likely related to motorists not adhering to the traffic laws and yielding to pedestrians at the intersection and red lights. The committee recommended that Mr. Doss have a conversation with Chief Mills about providing some type of police presence to monitor any vehicles not stopping before turning on red. There being no further business, the meeting was adjourned at 5:54 p.m. with a motion from myself, seconded by Ms. Evans. All agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Redmond. Everybody gets a turn to talk tonight, huh, Mr. Haskins?
That's right, Mayor. The Community Development Committee meeting took place April 15th at 6:04. I was there, Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Redmond, and Mr. Doss, along with several residents, were there as well. We approved the proceedings from January 13th, and then we spoke about the Jim Terrell Park and Jonas Memorial Park parking lot paving quotes. Mr. Doss provided the committee with 3 quotes to asphalt pave the existing and expanding parking lots at Jim Terrell Park and Jonas Memorial Park. The quotes are as follows: J.K. Muir Company for $23,755, Naira Paving for $23,805, and Pinnacle Paving for $24,641. Mr. Doss reminded the committee that the city received a grant from Claremont County Parks and Recreation in the amount of $10,000 to assist with the paving projects. Mr. Doss emphasized that the new parking lots will assist with increased recreational activities along the Little Miami River and Jonas Memorial Park. The parking lot expansion at Jim Terrell Park should also assist with congestion related to park patrons dropping off canoe kayaks. Mr. Doss recommended to the committee J.K. Mueller Company for asphalt paving services in the amount of $23,755. Without further committee discussion, the committee agreed to recommend that the law director draft an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with J.K. Mueller Company in the total amount of $23,755 for asphalt paving services for Jim Terrell Park and Jonas Memorial Park.
Second.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
The Jonas Landing discussion. Mr. Doss presented the committee with an opportunity to capitalize on the natural form sandbar developed along the banks of the Little Miami River, adjacent to Jonas Memorial Park. Mr. Doss stated that the area is approximately 100 feet long and 20 feet wide, with sand and relatively smooth river rock. The area is already being sparsely used by individuals for fishing, canoeing, kayaking, launching, and sunbathing. Mr. Doss would like to utilize the area to expand usage of the beach area to attract local and visitors to downtown Milford. Mr. Doss stated that in recent years, the city has expressed a desire to utilize the trailhead and Little Miami River as both a recreational asset and an economic development driver for Milford. Mr. Doss envisions the city marketing the area and providing chair rentals for patrons, an exclusive picnic area, and light concessions. The aforementioned items could easily be removed in the event of a flood on the Little Miami River. The city would use part-time summer help to assist with serving Jonas Landing. Mr. Redmond stated that he appreciates the forward thinking and the concept to attract more individuals to downtown Milford, but he is concerned with the limited amount of parking to accommodate the proposed beach landing. He would much rather prefer for the interest to occur more organically than he advertised and marketed by the city, advertised and marketed by the city. Mr. Doss emphasized that patrons could use the parking lot at Riverside Park and ultimately the walking path to access the beach landing. He also stated that the city would encourage Milford residents to walk or bicycle to the beach landing area at Jonas Memorial Park. Rebecca Shundig and Daryl Donovan spoke about canoe and kayaks, emphasizing their concern for the traffic on the banks of the Little Miami River for the Little Miami Brewing Company. Ms. Shundig stated that 30 feet of the bank is protected by federal land. Mr. Donovan stated that the bank is being eroded by the amount of canoe and kayak traffic downhill from the brewery. Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Haskins expressed interest in the proposed Jonas Landing area, but share some of the same concerns brought forth by Mr. Redmond. The committee agreed to advance the Jonas Landing concept to City Council for further discussion. There being no further business, we adjourn the meeting at 6:40.
Thank you, Mr. Haskins.
You're welcome.
Do you want to discuss the Jonas Landing concept?
Is tonight the night?
Is it urgent?
It's not urgent, we can table it?
I think we should table it.
It's
Yep.
fine.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much. All right, City Manager report, Mr. Doss.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple items for this evening. I think everyone can rejoice, have a positive update on the Riverside Walking Path. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources finally received approval from the U.S. National Park Service. We were waiting for the tribal councils to provide input on any interest they have in the park and our excavation. That is all cleared now. So all the federal government red tape has been cut. So we're reverting back to a contractor that was previously approved by City Council via a competitive bid process. We've talked to that contractor and they have guaranteed their pricing. Just to recall, that amount was $81,500. Again, just a reminder, this park project was grant awarded to the city by ODNR and the U.S. Department of Interior. The walking path project is anticipated to begin in late May or early June. We are coordinating with the contractor for exact scheduling when they can break ground because, again, we want to be respectful of Frontier Days, so we don't have that park clogged up with a lot of construction equipment. So we'll work with them in a pre-construction meeting to work out that schedule a little bit more specifically. I do want to also let council know that we have filled the vacant water operator position. That new employee is expected to begin work in the next couple weeks for the water department. No standing committee meetings at this time, and just a couple reminders, April 24th, which is this Saturday here at City Hall in the parking lot, is our Community Shred Day. The hours for that will be 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., open to all Milford residents. And then also May 4th is our next City Council meeting at 7.
Mr. Doss, I'm putting you on the spot, so I apologize in advance. I don't expect you to know the answer, but in case you do, citywide yard sale? Do you know the date for that by chance?
May 14th, 15th, and 16th. It's a
Citywide
Friday,
yard sale, May
Saturday, and a
14th,
Sunday.
15th, 16th.
Yes.
Got it.
Jackie for the win.
There you go.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
We'll advertise that on our social media and
Yes.
get it out. Just
Okay.
want to get through shred day first, so.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, be sworn.
Hi, Chief Mills.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. You may recall I gave you my March monthly report at the last council meeting, so I don't have a report tonight, but I'm here if you have any questions.
Excellent report as always.
Hearing none, thank you.
Wait, I
Oh, well, not that easy.
No, it's simple. You had talked about Junior Police Academy.
Correct.
And I just wanted to know what the ages were, like, can you like,
I believe it's 13 to 17, and that's
Okay.
a collaboration with us, Miami Township and Goshen, and that is the first week of June. So there's a link on our Facebook page. You can also get to it on the Miami Township website page.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Fire and EMS, Chief Baird.
Good evening, everyone. I placed our March report in front of you earlier, just to go through a few things on there. We had a busy night, and I won't take up too much time, but we began a fundraising campaign to refurbish the 9/11 and Claremont County Law Enforcement Memorial Site located adjacent to the fire station. As many of you know, we have it's been there for about 20 years. We're one of the few communities in Greater Cincinnati that are still conducting an annual observance on the anniversary each year of the terrorist attacks of 2001. In addition to that, the Claremont County Law Enforcement Memorial is there. The most recent name to unfortunately have to be engraved on that was that of Deputy Brewer from the Claremont County Sheriff's Office. Because of its age and just the fact that it's time to do some work to it, the department has taken upon itself to do fundraising. We've already had several pledges, including from the Duke Foundation, Duke Energy Foundation, for $2,500. We were notified of that last week. Milford Police Community Partnership, Loizo Lawn Care and Landscaping. Mr. Doss has pledged the city's cooperation to help make things happen. The Firefighters Club, the department itself, and today we received a donation from Evans Funeral Home towards the cause. So we're actively seeking donations towards this important memorial's maintenance, trying to get it ready for the next 20 years of its life. We have estimated it will take about $8,000 to do the work that we need to do. It encompasses not only paver work that needs to be done, but also new foliage, replacement of some trees that perished because of blight, and just basically sprucing it back up again. So we're actively working on that, and I hope to report maybe next month or two that we have a definite plan of action to get it ready for the September 20-year anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. Also, Milford Walmart gave the Firefighters Club a $1,000 donation. The Firefighters Club fundraising effort this year centers on a $14,000 rescue tool to replace an aged piece of equipment that the department still operates. And we have already had a number of donations that has gotten the club closer to that goal. But throughout the summer, you'll see the club members and the department members again working at the various festivals and art fair and other things that go on, fundraising for that cause as well. But we want to acknowledge Walmart for their community grant to the Firefighters Club. Our annual member physicals were completed by our contractor, Tri-Health Occupational Medicine, recently. We have currently posted a advertisement for internal applicants to fill a full-time firefighter paramedic position. And I'm hoping to have that underway within the next month or so, that process to hire somebody. There was a kickoff meeting. I know many of you will remember from, I guess it's been about a year ago. The city and the community fire department are partners in a larger regional traffic improvement grant, traffic signal improvement grant, which also includes the installation of traffic preemption devices at all of the intersections within the city, as well as in other neighboring communities, that allow the emergency response vehicles from not only the community fire department, but also our police department and the neighboring communities that are so equipped to be able to traverse the city a little bit more easily by taking control of the traffic lights as they go through. A lot of people don't know this, but they are all over this Miami Township, Goshen Township, along Montgomery Road corridor. It just makes it safer and a little bit quicker for the emergency vehicles to get through to the destination or to the hospitals or wherever they're responding. There was a kickoff meeting held for that, and I think we're expecting that work to commence in the region probably within the next few months. So probably not a whole lot of noticeable impact, but it will be ongoing at some point in time, probably yet this year. The refurbished 2012 ambulance that was set onto a 2021 chassis, a new chassis, should be completed by the end of the month. Again, I want to acknowledge Goshen Township for allowing us to continue to use one of their spare ambulances as our backup ambulance, and a couple of times it's been our primary ambulance when we've had to do stuff to our only owned ambulance that's currently in town. But we're hoping to pick that up on April 30th. It should be a very quick turnaround to get it back in service, so we should see it on the streets within a week or two after we receive it back from the manufacturer. And finally, I just want to touch on the fact, I'm sure Mr. Doss made you aware of this, but we had done a cooperation with the Claremont County Emergency Management Agency. We did a PR release. They had to retest the sirens from the monthly test. They usually test them the first Wednesday of the month at noon. There was a situation not involving Milford where a number of sirens did not activate elsewhere in the county, and the Emergency Management Agency felt like that since we were entering the thick of severe weather season, they really needed to get a handle on what the issue was. So they did a press release and a lot of publicizing and tested the sirens again the following week. And again, both times our sirens activated, they were coincidentally just given preventative maintenance by our contractor in the month of March and had no problems with them. So I just want to make you aware of what was going on with that. And I apologize for the length. Are there any questions for the fire department?
No, just give a shout out to our neighboring communities for their mutual support and aid when needed. Much obliged.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council comments. Are there any council comments before we go into ordinances and resolutions?
I do.
Yeah.
So I was, I guess, a little surprised. I thought we had decided as a city to make Oktoberfest a city event, and then was surprised when we kind of decided not to. So I wanted to discuss that. I just wrote down a few points, I guess. I thought last year that it went well, and we had decided to continue the event. And to continue it, I mean, I think we really need to close that one block on the same block we did last year, so that all city businesses can participate, so other businesses could be there. I know the brewery was going to host or have other restaurants and places there again like last year. I think it brings a lot of people to the city. I think last year it was a little overwhelming because we didn't know what to expect. I mean, no one had any idea there were that many people that were going to come. I think that this year, whether we choose to do it as a city event or not, the same amount of people are going to come. But I think if we trap it all in the brewery parking lot and don't include the city, I think it's almost going to make it more congested and not as safe. I think especially with the bank parking lot now, if we close that block, we can use all of both the side parking lots to spread booths out, have a beer garden, all of that, and all the businesses downtown can be positively affected from it. So I guess I just want to see other people's thoughts or why it was changed that we were not going to do that. Thoughts? I mean, I wasn't on any committee meetings or meetings where it was decided not to.
So we actually met with Joe and Dan for the Little Miami Brewing Company. What is it, about 3 weeks ago, maybe roughly? Met with them and several folks from staff. Some of the conclusions, there were some concerns, some of the conclusions that we had in talking internally. First thing, it's never really ideal to close a street. It's not ideal. I know we do that for a lot of events, but it is problematic. I actually have a business in downtown Milford that approached me late last week celebrating their 50th anniversary, and they want to close off a portion of Main Street for like an hour and a half. You want to accommodate them, but it's difficult to do. So we're working our way through that. But so our thoughts internally were closing off Water Street, how that could impact some of the businesses that are there and some of the residents that are there. Cohatch, as you all know, is coming online. They're kind of in that area a little bit with folks that'll be patroning that business. We're still not quite sure when the distillery, the Cincinnati Distillery, is going to open, impacting that business, the businesses that are there on Water Street, and also 20 Bricks and the residents at Riverwalk. So there were some concerns with that. Obviously, it's an all-day kind of drinking affair, so there was some concerns about people that might be inebriated crossing across Mill Street from one venue to the other venue, specifically on Water Street. So those were just some of the concerns that we had internally. So we were just not in a position to grant that request. But we're not the say all.
Right, I guess I was just thinking, like, safety-wise, I mean, they're gonna have the event whether we close the street or not, so, like, people will still be walking around downtown all day. 'Cause we closed all of Main Street for Art Affair. Like, to me, this block doesn't really affect hardly any businesses, and it's only one block so that residents can still get in and out of Riverwalk. And like 20 Bricks, like that side seat's still open, it's gonna help all those businesses because people will be right there at their business, I guess. People will probably be parking more down towards Riverside Park and walking down Main Street, so they'll be traveling all the way through downtown, I guess was my thought. I just thought it went really well last year, and everyone loved it. Everyone was excited about the next year, and then now we're not gonna participate. So, I didn't know what everybody else thought about that. Because I think, and maybe they can answer this question, I think they had already asked the governor to have a drink there, like to sell. They asked 20 Bricks if they wanted to sell the wine, like they were gonna include all the other businesses. I don't know if you want to answer that, Joe.
Dan Lynch, 208 Mill Street. First, Joe and I just decided, Chief Baird, we're going to donate $500 to the 9/11 thing. So just let us know. We'll do a fundraiser. I don't want to forget to tell you that. Yeah. So in 2019, last year, of course, was COVID, so we didn't have anything. This was a great event. It was the first year ever. We had no arrests. There were no injuries. There was a simple block of Water Street. And I think I talked to Neil, who's co-owner of the Governor. He was working at Padrino's. It was Padrino's best sales day they ever had. They just were understaffed. So it irritated, I think it irritated the owner, Hunter. But we were intending to make this a Milford event. It was always Milford. It was all inclusive. We were going to have the Governor. I talked to March 1st, Cincinnati Distillery. I called for Hunter at 20 Bricks and Padrino to invite them to. We weren't going to do any food. We were just going to do the beer. And we wanted to make it a Milford event. This is the best event on the east side for Oktoberfest. It was just so popular. And it's just one street. The city of Cincinnati closes 2 streets downtown for a whole weekend. This is just one little block in downtown. There's a crosswalk there. We were going to hire police presence. We were concerned, as everybody is, about public safety. And it's a shame that, because if we do it in our parking lot, we lose all those parking spaces. So those cars are now all over Milford, and it's not an all-inclusive event because you can't, the liquor license law, you can't have another outside vendor with a liquor permit be serving on your property. So it's a private property event instead of a city of Milford event. And I don't know, it was a great event, and we really were just taken aback, I guess, that there was some negative push about it because it was well received, and I really didn't understand I heard the reasons, Michael, but we didn't really understand them, and we were just, we're here tonight because we feel like it would be a great event. We can get sponsors. It would cost about 20 grand to pull the event off. So we were gonna do like 4 or 5 major sponsors. DER, RDI was committed, so we were gonna get a few sponsors to pay for booths, but we intended to invite all the local businesses, Tickled Sweet, The Governor, 20 Bricks, Padrino, Chappie's, By Gollies, I might be forgetting a few, but they were all gonna be part of that event. And that would change where now it's just our event and everybody just complains about the lack of parking because we're holding it at Little Miami. It's not we didn't want it to be Little Miami Brewing Company's Oktoberfest. We wanted it to be the city of Milford Oktoberfest, brought to you by Little Miami Brewing Company as far as the brewery. We wanted outside vendors to do the wine, 20 Bricks to do the wine, maybe the Governor do some craft cocktails. And, the people are going to walk across that Route 50, even if it's in our parking lot. They're still going to walk across that. And we were going to get police help, and that was our intention. So, any questions?
What has been your response from the other businesses in downtown? That you, and I know that you started to talk to them.
Yeah, I talked to Neil tonight. I called Neil before the meeting, and Paul and Neil were all excited about doing it. They had some food ideas. I know Lear's was into it too, because they sold a ton of brats, and we were going to do pickles and bones, like we did that one year. The other business, I haven't heard negative things from the businesses. I know of one owner who was upset for, I'm not sure what the reasons were. I think they were just understaffed that night, and it caused some problems. Everybody was understaffed. We didn't know 10,000 people were going to show up in downtown Milford. So we now know that. So now we can prepare. The beer lines won't be as long. We're going to have beer served both at the event center as kind of an open house, both at our brewery. We were going to have another beer truck. So there was going to be less lines. The lines were really long, and I know that was, but like you said, we just didn't know. We just didn't know.
Dan, just for clarification, to her point, when you said that Neil and Paul were excited, are they going to have a booth down there? So they're going to be able to man a booth and still run the restaurant that night?
That's their intent. That's what I'm understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were going to have a booth with some food items. And we were going to make it even more attractive. I think the booth for food vendors that year, the first year was $200. We were going to cut it back. Our intention wasn't to make a lot of money from food vendors. It was to pay for the fixed cost of things like generators, lights, tents. That stuff all adds up, and that's where the $20,000 comes in. If we can figure out how to cover that, that's the key.
What's the proposed date for that?
Well, that's been bantered around. We're in the process of possibly changing our mind about an October 16th being too late in the year. Joe, what was it?
Mid-September that weekend.
Mid-September. I think it was. It wasn't Art Affair week, and it wasn't the same week as Cincinnati's. It was. And I have Michael. I haven't even talked to you about this, but the date was. Let's see. I think it was September 18th is the date we were considering. I called and spoke to Jackie to find out what other events there were. I know the Porsche Club hasn't. I don't think they're doing anything this year.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, haven't heard anything. So it's just Art Affair later. So we were thinking like September 18th would be ideal because it's still in the Oktoberfest season. Versus late in October, which is kind of like the end of Oktoberfest. I mean, it is a German celebration, and it's supposed to be in September.
Well, what I heard too is you guys had met a couple weeks ago, and then there were some other compromise suggestions made that you were not looking into.
Right.
I know it was suggested that the VFW hall, which has a large area to accommodate 10,000 people, could be utilized, but you guys seem not interested in that.
That's right. We walked that. It's a half a mile from the event center to that area. We couldn't manage that kind of. It's too much space. Going down to Riverside Park, and I don't mean derogatory when I say this, but it makes it like a Frontier Days too. You know what I mean? We don't need a Frontier Day. This is Oktoberfest is, in a lot of cities, it's a one big brewery, and it's city streets. It's not another park.
I think the
So-
issue is Water Street, one block, 10,000 people, is very, very congested.
Well, it's not just Water Street. We have 5 acres. Our campus is 5 acres. The parking lot plus Water Street is 5 acres plus Water Street.
Let's say, but they're going to hold the event no matter what, so if we don't use Water Street, it's just in the brewery.
And the event center was going to be a beer hall. So our intention for that day was not to rent it out for any weddings or anything like that. We were going to reserve that for it to be like a German beer hall with German music. And then the other vendors would be on Water Street, so it would kind of flow, all right there. Riverside Park it didn't make any sense to us. It was too far away. You talk about safety. I mean, it's a way further. People are walking from one end to the other. It's like two separate events.
You did just say people would park at Riverside and walk, though, right?
They might.
Right?
Yeah, they
well, that's
might.
where they'd have to park, really.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be, there's parking at Riverside, and they'll walk from there. I don't know where everybody I didn't really study where they parked for that first year. Probably everywhere. But I mean, it's going to be a little bit of chaos, but it was a great event. People had fun. It brought a lot of people to the city of Milford, and it supported our businesses. The businesses had great sales days. They had a ton of people that they otherwise would never have seen that day. So that's all.
I guess, Ben, my thought was people are going to come whether we close the street or not. So by closing the street and then utilizing all the bank parking, we could spread it out and make it more manageable.
I'm also concerned, though, like Michael said about Cincinnati Distilling opening, too, and how that
They
might...
were going to be invited.
Well, I'm just saying for infecting in terms of that Water Street and stuff, we already know coming up that's going to be a big headache for us to figure out is the parking for them.
Right.
So, for us, my thing is trying to think about, their business too. Let me tell you, I volunteered at your event. It was awesome.
Yeah.
You guys did really well. You guys did
fun.
really well.
Thanks.
You guys did really, really well.
Thank you.
We met as a community development. That was the only meeting I had as my first year here. And then we, as a city, had discussed, because we were trying to figure out, well, what should we do? Should it be a city event, or should it continue to be a Little Miami Brewing event? And that's what we were trying to really figure out is, should the city step in to really take in, and then we're like working with you, or is it a private event that we're supporting?
I think we work together. I think it's really to make it the best event possible. That's how Sam Adams works with the city of Cincinnati when they do a big event like Oktoberfest. Little Miami, I mean, it was our idea. We work with the city of Milford, and we pull off a great event. We invite the other local businesses. We don't exclude anybody, because it is about all inclusion. And Cincinnati Distilling and March 1st, I'm sure they'd serve their beer or serve their liquor or whatever. And that was our plan. I had called, in fact, the day after the meeting, I called both Hunter and Mark at March 1st to say, hey, would you guys be interested in that? And I didn't get a call back from Hunter, but I did talk to Mark. So he, there was positive things from the businesses. I think businesses would like to do it. It's unfortunate if it becomes just our event. I think it makes us look like a selfish business in Milford. It puts a bad light on us if it's not a Milford event. That's my feeling about it.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know if we could take this to committee, so it could be discussed further in committee. I don't know what the
I don't know, I
proper
like us all
procedure would be.
talking about it.
Any thought about closing Main Street and just having, I mean, like the city of Greenville closes on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, almost
Be
every
nice.
weekend. And for their businesses to have party on the street, farmers markets, and none of their business, I mean, they thrive there. So is it a big deal for us to look at closing?
We didn't want it to be intrusive, and we thought Water Street was just a small, I mean, it's not like trying to close Main Street. I thought trying to close Main Street was a big deal, and we didn't want to even propose that. We wanted to keep it small. I think now that we have the event center, and now that we have the brewery and Water Street, that whole 5 acres plus Water Street and parking down at Riverside is ideal. It's perfect. There's tons of parking. There's 155 parking spaces at the brewery and the event center. I mean, and you add some more parking down at Riverside, it's going to be awesome.
Some of the businesses did push back on that a little bit.
Oh, yeah, some of the businesses didn't really want to, you want to say, some of the businesses didn't want to close down Main Street.
Okay, that's right.
There was a lot of negative.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. That was,
I think those same businesses are kind of against you closing Water Street too, though.
probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
I really wish you guys would consider working out the logistics of using the Riverside Park. It's such a beautiful area, and I know it is a short thing, but with the amount of activity and business it could bring, it could be really something special, because then it gets people to walk between your campuses, between like this event.
I don't think people would go. I think people would go to one or the other, and they wouldn't go back and forth.
It's too far.
Well, once people are drunk, they pretty much walk all over the city.
Well, the Legion did offer to serve their beer at the Legion, so they would still make money at the Legion.
Well, yeah, but I just don't think, people would. I mean,
Dan, if you think 10,000 people came last year,
oh, I don't
and
know.
you re-advertised for this year, and then included
Probably
everything you
15.
wanted to include,
Yeah.
what do you, I know you'd have to rub the
Like
crystal ball on
15,000
this.
probably.
You think it'd be 15?
12 to 15.
Okay.
With the event center beer, but see, the event center, the whole campus, the event center occupancy standing is 600 persons. Okay, so 600 people are going to be inside listening to German music and looking at the river, and they're going to be inside a beer garden. There's going to be another 300 or 400 at the brewery, and then there's going to be more people that kind of corral along Water Street and go to the vendors and that. That's how we envision that. Riverside Park just is so far and disconnected. It just doesn't, we can't manage. It was hard enough for us, because we took on the role of renting all the equipment and the generators and, getting kegs into the beer trailer that were empty. We were running kegs back and forth. I mean, it was, logistically, it was a lot of work. You have to run kegs. We can't run kegs all the way down to Riverside Park. I mean, we were doing it on hand trucks, crossing the street and doing it manually. It was a lot of work. I think we sold 65 kegs of beer that night, wasn't it, Joe? Something like that? Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of beer. But the event center is going to help a lot, because it's a big building and holds a lot of people. And that whole, that campus plus Water Street is just, it's ideal. That's how when you go to Oktoberfest, it's a continuum of one parcel. It's not broken up. It's not, I mean, if it was so big and all of Water Street was closed all the way down to Riverside Park, and it was that big of an event, that would make sense. Then you could manage that. But having that in between just doesn't make sense to us.
Dan, I'll just say for me, and you and I have talked about this a lot. I love that event. It was so much fun. We were all exhausted. We all volunteered until we couldn't stand up. Everybody had a great time, no doubt about it. Some of the businesses didn't have a great time because their places were being used as portable restrooms for women who didn't want to go in portalets. I'll say, huh?
That's not their fault, though.
No, it's not their fault. No, absolutely not their fault. All I'll say is, for me personally, I've listened to police and fire's concerns over it, and I have to pay attention to their concerns about shutting down that street. And I've also heard that not everybody is completely on board with shutting that street down. I'm good with whatever. Honestly, I am. I support you in all your endeavors, but, we've got police and fire telling us that that's not within their comfort zone to shut that street down again. Just because we did it last year, we did learn a lot, and maybe we should consider something else.
Okay. Well, I mean, if
I'm
that's
yielding to the people that
right. If
are
that's
giving
the
me the
decision,
advice.
I mean, we'll just do
That's me. You
our own
guys can
event.
speak for
I mean,
yourself.
it's unfortunate.
I think the city will lose out.
Huh?
I think the city will lose out. I guess I just don't see the difference in closing that one block versus for Art Affair or the Porsche Rally or closing all of Main Street.
I think
The
some
safety
people felt, though, it's because it's a for-profit thing. This is nothing against you guys or anything, but those other things are like nonprofit organizations. Am I correct about that? Am I right? Is Art Affair?
Porsche Rally, I don't know.
But they're not selling anything. I think some people are feeling that is the city just helping one business make a lot of money.
But I think all those city businesses could have a booth there to.
Yeah,
to
we
make-
were, our intention was to invite everyone.
Some of them can't man their shop and do a booth.
The difference, though, this year, then correct me, that wasn't, we have the park, the bank parking lot, which we did not have before.
Right.
Which is a much, right, like, so last time we only had the street part, correct?
Right, so
Or
people
was
could
it, I
be
wasn't
in-
here, I was out of town.
No, we had parking in the park, and we
Well,
also
the
had the
people, I mean,
dumpsters.
to me, that would be a
The
people
dumpsters were in there, the
Toilets.
toilets were in there, the beer was in
Okay,
there.
okay, so that whole parking
all
lot was
full.
utilized
Yes.
by the event. Okay,
Yeah.
I was out of town, so I
Yeah.
missed it. Okay.
I'll just say for the Porsche Rally, and this is again something we've talked about internally, we've struggled with. The Porsche Rally, the businesses that I hear, like maybe a handful, actually benefit from the Porsche Rally being there. As a matter of fact, when they go to start judging and doing that, people start finding out they're not going to be part of the winner's circle. They leave and peel off. So we have these gap sections of Main Street that are closed off, and these businesses are like, hey, people can't park here because it's closed off, but there are plenty of spaces available. So that's the thing we've struggled at least with the Porsche Rally, and quite frankly, just that would be an event we would consider cutting in a way, and I think they're having some internal changeover as well. But I mean, Art Affair is Art Affair. That's been going on for a while. I think a lot of businesses get residuals from that, people coming in and seeing that. But I know the Porsche Rally, because we close that off, it's gap spaces, about an hour and a half into it. And, a few people come and get breakfast sandwiches or something like that for the most part. A lot of businesses
I remember
just
the last one
tolerate it.
because they had to commit to stay the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I don't even know, we've talked, we're not sure we're doing it again. Are we doing it again this year?
Well, their president moved to Columbus, so they're in a little bit of an organizational shift up. So
That needed to change.
I don't
'cause
think
if
I
they
don't know
weren't
if it's
gonna
going to
stay the whole
happen this
time-
year or not. Internally, I don't know if they're going to be able to commit or not.
Right.
So just to clarify though, regardless, you're going to do Oktoberfest,
Yeah,
regardless of what happens.
on our campus.
Yeah,
Yep. It'll be an LMBC Oktoberfest in our back lot.
Will you still invite businesses to
We
participate?
you can't have.
You can't sell
you can't
food?
you can sell food. We could like Lear's, and it'd be much smaller. There's only
Right, because you have to have the space for
one of
everything.
the space.
We
So
can still call it
but you-
Oktoberfest in City of Milford and encourage everyone to participate in their own way in their
No, that's
own
But you can't
venue.
have
fair
like
to
we
piggyback
can't
off
have the governor serve craft cocktails on our lot. You can't have Padrinos sell wine on our lot because
No, I meant they would all do their thing on their own, in their own restaurant, in their
yeah.
own.
I mean
Yeah.
it's not really an Oktoberfest is on a public street, and it's a brewery is a central point of an Oktoberfest. It's fine, but it's not really an Oktoberfest. It's a party at LMBC. That's what it is. I mean, it's not a citywide event that really was very successful and well received, and it's not the same thing. We can pretend it is, but it's not.
With it being the whole city versus, and then people could actually use their Dora cups.
Yeah.
If they bought, versus if it's just on the street, right? They couldn't use their Dora cups.
Right.
In the street part, correct?
Well,
Because then it was an event,
No.
and Dora cups can't be used in events, or?
They can do both.
Yeah, they
You
could do it.
Okay.
There's
I didn't think they were allowed to use Dora cups.
yeah,
in
but
an
there's been
event.
some changes. The liquor license law changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's been several things, House bills that have passed that now make it so that an event like ours can be on it. Before, a brewery couldn't actually do it on their property without the help of a nonprofit, which
Okay.
is why we did it with HMA that first year.
Right, okay.
That's no longer necessary. That State of Ohio changed that because of COVID, and they wanted to make it easier there was some very archaic laws going back to Prohibition days that I won't get into all that, but that changed, so you can actually have an event now, and if an adjacent street, here's the term, adjacent street is part of the event, which Water Street is an adjacent street to our campus, that becomes part of what you can do.
Okay.
The term actually in the law that was passed is adjacent street. Riverside Park's not adjacent, it's disconnected. It's a whole different property.
Thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying.
Yeah.
Could Chief Mills, Chief Baird come up? I had a question, if that'd be okay. And I apologize for putting you guys on the spot, but this is the discussion we're having, and I was not there last year, and I was just wondering if you guys might be able to comment about what that meant to safety services and city services and how that went last year and just kind of your general feelings.
Sure. Well, I think we all know that in 2019 it was way more than we anticipated. Aside from that, the one point I'll make is that, and Michael knows this, anytime we sit down with planners for special events, I always ask, do we have to close the road? Anytime we can avoid that, I always lean that way. Doesn't mean that it's a hard, fast rule, doesn't mean that I can't reasonably, with a reasonable degree of confidence, provide safety when we have to close roads, but he knows that it gives me a little bit of heartburn every time we close a road. We've talked about it numerous times for every special event, and my preference is to always get them off of the main roads because of what we see happening. It's impossible to plan for some of our worst-case scenarios. And it's also just a logistic issue, sometimes closing the road and getting traffic around it, those types of issues. But it's not something I can't work around with any of the events. But as a standing rule, for the interest of public safety, I realize it's a lot more fun when we can close roads. But, when I'm talking from my professional perspective,
Yep.
I'm always in favor of not closing roads.
Thank you.
The concern I expressed, which is, quite frankly, I'll be the doomsday guy here. That was a soft target last year. I sound like a police officer. But that was a soft target, and anytime you put yourself in a situation like that where you haven't hardened the barriers, if you will, that concerns me. We've had, Cincinnati has had situations with Oktoberfest that involved pedestrian strikes and so forth. And those are things, that was the one thing that I mentioned, was the fact that it probably needs to be hardened on the exterior, if you will. In other words, put something between the bad guys and the crowd. Jersey barriers, large trucks. We talked, because I remember the conversation was, put the service vehicles on each end of it or something like that, just something to try to harden. We never thought a lot of things would happen in Milford, and we saw last summer that indeed we need to be more cognizant of the threats to our community, and that was my input into the conversation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you both. I appreciate it.
So what's everyone's thoughts?
Can I ask one more question?
Of course.
Michael, the city services, again, and I apologize I was not there, but how did we work that from a trash pickup to whatever the city might be responsible to do that day, and did we do it well, and moving forward, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I was not there either. I was on an island, so I didn't participate. Literally, I was on an island.
I was there, I can answer that.
But yeah, we provide trash, we provide blockades in advance to help set that up like any other event that we do. We would probably have a couple individuals do trash duty that entire day because it's going to be a constant overflow. And I think there were some instances where there was traffic that encroached on other businesses, empty cups and things like that were there. I know because I did get those calls when I got back on land. So you live and you learn, and some of the things, I think Pam Holbrook was interim at that time, and getting with her, getting with Ed, and some of the things that we need to improve on. Obviously, again, having more folks down there from the service department to assist with trash pickup is going to be our biggest thing, because there were complaints about that a couple years ago.
Because it was like double the people they thought or whatever.
Yeah, it needed tweaked. And there was some miscommunication as to what happened the next day with removing barriers and picking up garbage and who's getting rid of the dumpster, that kind of thing.
Okay.
There were a little bit of lapses in communication, but,
was a
first time
first-year event.
First time event, you
Yeah.
work out the hiccups.
And that's true. I mean, it was like our first year of Sparks in the Park when
Right.
we ran out of food. We had no idea, and we were laughing that we'd get maybe a few hundred people. We got probably close to 5,000 people that showed up for that. And obviously the subsequent years after that, I think we've done, bragging on our staff, I think we've done a pretty good job of adapting to that. But we don't know this year, right? I mean, what events are going to be canceled, what events are not going to be canceled. Sparks in the Park for this year that we're doing, even though we're scaling it back a little bit, we may have 5,000. We may, if Red, White, and Blue Ash and places like that don't have a fireworks display or Independence Day celebration, we may have way more people than that, just because people want to get back to some degree of normalcy. And these are outdoor events, so where we can accommodate larger crowds and kind of spread them out a little bit. So even with Sparks, we're not quite sure if we're going to have 5,000 or, God, Lord, maybe 7,000 people or 8,000 people potentially, just depends on it. And I think that's an unknown with this. You could have 10,000, how many Oktoberfests are going to go on? You could have 10,000 people. You could have 15 to 20,000 people. I don't know. I think the challenge with the Little Miami Brewing Company is you have parking or you have people, and I don't know if parking and people can coexist on that lot to handle a spillover. People are either going to have to park somewhere way distant from the brewery to participate in Oktoberfest, or they're going to park cars there, and I don't know if people walking around a little intoxicated are going to have their car there while people are walking in and out, hitting their car or doing some type of vandalism. Again, that's on private property, so it's not really a city concern, but these are just things that you think about when you take in the totality of all public safety. Did I answer your question?
Oh, yeah,
Sorry,
thank
kind of
you.
went around a little bit on it.
Anybody else? So I just feel like I really want these guys to have an answer from council. I think they deserve it. We've been talking about this for a while now. I'd like to be able to say that we're going to stay with the recommendation, or we're not. To Lisa's point, she brought it up. I think it's great that we discussed it, but I do think these guys deserve an answer. So are we going to stay with the recommendation from the city manager and staff, and we try it this year and see how it goes, and then tweak it again? Or what are your thoughts?
If that's the recommendation of city staff, then I'd like to try it a different way this year, see how that goes, and to your point, possibly tweak it in year 3 if we can, and adjust from there, and see which way worked better, what did work, didn't work, and go from there.
Does everyone agree with that comment? Or does someone disagree and want to make another point?
I disagree, but that's just,
Yeah,
that's my
fine.
opinion.
What's your opinion? Yeah.
I think we're missing out. What town did you say they close the streets every weekend?
Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
I would like to see this more of a citywide, more city. Like, I would love that. I don't know if just that one little block, like this being bigger,
Oh,
you
I'd
know,
love to
like
close on
in
Main
that.
Street, yeah.
But I would love to see, can we blow it out and do a really nice Oktoberfest where, we're
Yeah.
including everybody and it's just a win-win. Being what's proposed here, I guess I have to go with city staff because I was not there part of it. And I am kind of concerned about, I'm glad you were thinking about police, paying the police, because that was, well, how are people crossing the street? It does just seem like a small area that doesn't really benefit everybody, unfortunately.
Mayor, if I may, we did, after we had this discussion with the brewery a few weeks ago, I did approach the American Legion because the American Legion, like a lot of other organizations, really suffered last year because there wasn't anything going on. And I did post to them if they were interested in working out some Water Street back and forth, kind of a barbell, if you will, event. And the Legion got back to me rather quickly and said, yeah, they would be interested in doing some type of Oktoberfest. And we talked about, well, not just having beer, but having some Oktoberfest activities there that could utilize Riverside Park. And again, we've expanded Riverside Park, as you all know. We've added the Jonas addition to that. So you've got a really cool kind of area going on there. So, but the Legion, I wouldn't really speak for them right now, but they're kind of in a holding pattern because I threw that out to them. They threw back to me that they were interested. We just haven't engaged them anymore, what involvement the city would have in that. Obviously, we share a parking lot down there and, of course, the parks as well. So, we'd have to work that out with them logistically. But they were interested in a city of Milford larger scale Oktoberfest at that time.
And, I am actually one of those people, I like that idea too. I like the idea of engaging the Legion in some form or fashion. They even offered to sell their beer. Hunters offered to sell the beer at 20 bricks. I'm sure Paul and, would do whatever. But I actually, I can see it. I can see the activity on both ends of the city. I can see us having shuttle buses running people back and forth. Heck, I see so many people being in the city of Milford that they're parking at Main and we're shuttling people all over the city all day long. We've got 10 6-passenger shuttles running constantly everywhere, so everybody gets to everywhere they want to be. And their beer is marked all over the city because it's their signature event, but we do and make it city-wide, with the focus being on the Legion as well. I know that that's not what he wants to hear, and I'm sorry that that's not what you like. I appreciate that, but I see that. I see that as rocking the whole city without having to leave their restaurants to staff somewhere else. I can see that. Sandy, Kyle, what do you think?
I don't know. I run a restaurant right now, and I'll tell you, it's hard to get people to work. So I sympathize with the restaurants downtown. If they had the help and they can get volunteers, yeah, I would love to see it. But I'm kind of sympathizing with them a little bit. As far as the detachment, I don't see what you see. I don't. Yeah, unless we put up a big tent down there and you've got, your German music going on down at that end, and you got German music going down at that end, and you got, they're doing whatever German
Chicken dance.
There you go. All that. If you can work all that out, yeah, that sounds like fun. But, I think there's a detachment there in my mind, and I don't think there'd be a good Oktoberfest flow. I mean, I've gone to plenty of Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
So, but, we have a little bit of a issue with, connection as far as 50 is a main thoroughfare, and the police and the fire recommendations are, not to close that street. Or not to close it as often as we would like at times. So that's my input. I'd love to see it. I'm right there for him.
Kyle, you want to
I
say?
just think I got a backstaff.
Huh?
Backstaff.
Staff?
Yeah. Can't go against that.
Mr. Lynch?
I was just going to say one more thing. We did all the planning for the event. I mean, it was the HMA benefited as a nonprofit and received, I think the profit they got was, if I'm right, Zach knows the number, Zach Gamble, it was 8 to 10 grand that they made, the nonprofit. And there was some participation, but we did all the planning. It was our staff. It was all the hours that Katie and Joe and I and Jim, and it was, so to talk about an event that's even bigger, that's disconnected, who's going to put all that together? You know what I mean?
Well, it would take city involvement.
Yeah, it's totally a different
Take
thing.
an event coordinator.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing. Yeah.
Which we don't have.
Which we don't have.
Okay. I think the message is clear. We're going with staff recommendation.
No,
We've already, they're the applicant in this case.
Thank you.
Okay, so are we good with that, everybody? Any more discussion from council? Okay. Let's wrap this night up. Let's get to ordinances and resolutions.
Can I just
Oh,
say something?
yes, of course. I'm so sorry. No,
I'm so sorry.
okay.
But I just wanted to say we had our first Building Bridges community conversations last night. It was fantastic. It was awesome. We had 13 new people who have not been part of it at all. If you still want to come, you can come next Monday night. It's from 7 to 8:30. It's down here in council chambers. Please come. It's an amazing panel of people. And I just want to throw this out there, and we don't have to have discussion, but it
Are you sure?
kind of goes with, I just wanted to propose us as council think about moving to work sessions. Throwing it out there, we don't have to have discussion about tonight, but I think just with everything going on in the city, with all of, a water tower and all of this stuff, that it would be great if we could have, even though this has been a long meeting, I love the collaboration when we can all gather together and discuss together as a group. And I think it serves our residents well when we do this. And So I'm just throwing that out there.
We tried for like 4 years ago.
Yeah, we've
Second.
discussed it.
Yeah.
Lisa and I've been through that one.
No, but I was for it 4 years ago. I'm on board. So. we can
Okay,
have
that
discussion
sounds
later.
good. All right. Mr. Manier, ordinance 2021-80.
Thank you, Mayor. Discussion regarding increasing the weight of vehicles to 14,000 pounds has come up over the years periodically. It even predates the current council. And I don't believe in prosecuting law-abiding citizens for the type of vehicle they have, as long as it's licensed and parked in their driveway or legally parked in the street. And I think that's been a difficulty over the year for me and the police department, as far as being able to not bring our law-abiding citizens into court for that. So I would be in favor of the passage of this ordinance, and if there aren't any 14,000-pound vehicles out there, then I guess we don't have anything to worry about. Ordinance 2021-80, an ordinance amending section 351-17 of the codified ordinances of the city of Milford regarding parking and storage of vehicles. Now therefore be ordained by the council of the municipality of Milford, section 1. The council of the city of Milford hereby amends section 351.17E of the codified ordinances of the city of Milford to read as follows. E, no person shall park or keep any semi-trailer or truck with a gross vehicle weight rating in excess of 14,000 pounds at any place on property located in a residential district except in a completely enclosed garage or other accessory vehicle. Section 2, the council of the city of Milford hereby amends section 351.17F of the codified ordinances of the city of Milford to read as follows. F, no person shall park or keep any semi-trailer or any truck with a gross vehicle weight rating in excess of 14,000 pounds at any place on property located in any district in the city other than a residential district for a continuous period of 2 hours, except as provided for in subsections G and H herein below. Section 3, the council of the city of Milford hereby amends section 351.17G of the codified ordinances of the city of Milford to read as follows. G, semi-trailers or trucks with a gross vehicle weight rating in excess of 14,000 pounds may obtain a special parking permit for the following purposes, and those purposes are not being changed, and they're quite lengthy. Section 4, the council of the city of Milford hereby amends section 351.17H of the codified ordinances of the city of Milford to read as follows. H, semi-trailers or trucks with a gross vehicle weight rating in excess of 14,000 pounds may park without a parking permit for the following purposes. Again, those are delineated, those haven't been changed. Section 5, all other portions of section 351.17 not expressly amended herein shall remain in full force and effect. This ordinance amends and supersedes any and all ordinances, resolutions, rules, or regulations which are clearly inconsistent herewith. Section 6, pursuant to in accordance with section 12.05 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage by City Council.
Move to suspend the rules and read by title only.
Second.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
I would just like to make some clarifications here. The trucks or vehicles, actually, vehicles exceeding 14,000 pounds are not going to be permitted on dedicated local streets, period, except if those vehicles are making deliveries to or picking up property, goods, whatever, on that street. Now, I'm going to use Cleveland Avenue as an example, even though it's going to pertain to all local dedicated streets, and I'm going to use Scenic River as an example, although it applies to all similar vehicles. If Scenic River is using Cleveland Avenue and stops somewhere on Cleveland Avenue to pick up property, people, whatever, then it would be an exception. If it's not, even if it ends up at Terrell Park, Under the way this is written, Scenic River would not be able to use Cleveland Avenue even if it stops at Terrell Park. Another example, a huge moving van, one of the big ones, leaving Terrace Park Country Club. Even if they were going to, their end route is somewhere on High Street or Main Street delivering furniture, they would not be able to use Cleveland Avenue. Now, in that particular case, they could apply to the city for a one-time permit, which may not be granted, so they could do that. So the business that's being conducted, and I probably wasn't clear on this, and I apologize for that. The business that is being conducted has to be on that street, whether it's Cleveland, Forest. Now, we've got examples or we've got things in here, and I don't know, maybe there's a dedicated street in Milford that has a restaurant on it or a gas station, but anyway, Scenic would not be able to use Cleveland with their overweight buses with the way this is written. And they probably wouldn't be eligible for a permit either, since permits are only basically used for a one-time special occurrence. So if that's not your intent, then we shouldn't pass it tonight.
Oh, he confused me even more.
But I would suggest they go ahead and read it, and then you can discuss
No,
it.
but then he said like a furniture truck can't deliver furniture on High Street without a special permit?
That's the way it's written.
Just can't go cut.
Right.
Here's the thing, we're talking, you cannot use a street as a commercial cut through. There are many ways to get to places in Milford. So you cannot cut through a residential street. In this example, it's Cleveland. To get to High Street, you'd have to go down State Route 50 if it was a moving truck, or
Couldn't go over like
28,
Mohawk.
Or Mohawk.
This would be anything
stuff like
over
that.
14,000 pounds.
Yes, anything over 14,000 pounds.
Now I'm confused. Now I'm,
Basically, a street for 50 or 28.
and I'm also confused that we didn't do the second reading of that ordinance, did we?
We did not.
The first ordinance, we didn't do the second reading of.
Are you ready for him to read it the second time?
Oh, I thought he never finished 2021-80.
Yeah, we didn't.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, no, they never did, we
No,
never
we
I
did
haven't read
finish
it by
20,
title only.
we didn't finish 2021-80.
We have not finished 2021-80.
We need to finish 2021.
I haven't read it by
first.
title only yet. Have we got to that point where I'm doing that, or what?
I just made a motion to read by title only,
And we
but we
voted
never
on it.
did. You didn't read it by title
What?
only yet.
No,
I think you got ahead of yourself.
She made a motion to read by title only.
Yes.
Who seconded it?
I did.
We voted?
I thought we
Yes.
voted.
yes,
Voted.
yes.
2021-80, an ordinance amending section 351-17 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Milford
Is for.
regarding parking and storage of vehicles.
Motion to adopt.
Second?
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Velardo,
Yes.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Mr. Haskins,
Yes.
Mr. Redmond.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess after writing all those 4,500 ordinances, I've kind of lost touch, you know?
I'm still just
Yeah.
now all confused about the other one again.
What
I
should-
thought if they were doing business in the city, they can do business in the city. A moving van should be allowed to drive down Cleveland Avenue if they're delivering furniture like the High Street, because they're doing business in the city. If that's not true, then I'm not going to vote for that.
If
Well,
we're
it
talking
gets
about
touchy because it does get a little slippery, because Cemetery Lane is a cut-through for the people on 131 coming through.
Sure, yeah.
Forest Avenue is a
Price
cut-through, the
Road.
people for Price Road. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
it does get a little
I mean,
slippery.
if someone's delivering furniture on Forest, I don't care if they cut down, downtown, I don't care if they cut down Forest to deliver their furniture.
Well, moving van's not going to be a reoccurring event.
Yeah,
That's
that's,
what I
I'm
mean, but are we
guessing they'll-
excluding
But it's
it? But if we vote for this, are we excluding the moving van?
no, so you guys are I think we keep getting confused on this idea that what we're voting on is limiting no big trucks anywhere or anything. For me, how I interpret it is we're saying that there are streets on Milford that cannot be commercial cut-throughs based on the vehicle weight. That's what we're voting on. And that there are many ways.
Local streets.
But you
Yeah, all local streets.
cut-through is
Yes,
not
all local
stopping in the
streets.
city.
All local streets, yes. All
Cut-through
local.
is not stopping in the city.
Correct.
So if they stop in the city to deliver furniture, then they're doing business in the city.
But they're not doing business on that street.
On that street, cut-through
He's
street.
saying there's other streets.
So you're
that
saying
can
they
be
gotta drive all the way around
utilized.
275 to come deliver their furniture?
Yep.
Well,
Well,
then
there's
we could ask for-
28 or
Since it's
50.
not a reoccurring frequent event, then they probably would be eligible to get a permit. I mean, people are moving, to and from South Milford all the time, and moving vans use that street
You come down to enforce.
when that happens.
And they don't have, do they get
But
permits?
using that as a cut-through, that's what this is designed to prevent.
If they were picking up stuff on Cleveland and then they were going to High Street, that would be okay. But they can't go from Round Bottom to High Street.
So if somebody
go
wants
from
to go
Terrace
up to the Miami Woods with the moving van, you're saying they have to get a special permit from the city? They can't cut down Forest Avenue to get there?
Technically, they have to go center to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
No, they
exactly
couldn't go
what it is.
center.
Now, and like
Couldn't
he
go
said
center.
too,
They'd have to go 28.
They would have to
They
be
can't
able to
go
go,
to
they would have to
McClellan.
go on a street to get there.
Would be
You'd have to-
enforceable.
But then they have to have a
They just
permit to
wouldn't
do
be
that?
cutting through.
Well, they would be cutting through
it's also
my neighborhood to get
signage
there.
too,
They
though,
would be
right?
cutting through.
It's signage too, right? Isn't, because Forest doesn't have a sign that says no cut-through traffic, right?
I don't know. I mean,
I-
trucks
I
go up and down
think
my street,
that's
but.
the signage part's part of this whole thing too, is if there's a, it's
Well, then
all.
we'd be
Doesn't this
putting-
apply to all city
then we'd be
streets, is
putting
what he said?
signs on all the streets,
He
right?
said this applies to
Well, there
every
is
street in
pretty
the
much,
city.
there is signage on pretty much all of our streets that say no cut-through truck traffic. There's,
Is it on Forest and Center?
I have
I'm
not,
asking, I don't
I have
know.
not explored Forest and
I don't know.
Center.
But I don't want to
but
pass
I
this
know
and then a
there
moving
is-
truck can't go to Miami Woods legally. That's not
I
right.
don't think that's what
I
it's
don't think
saying,
that's
though.
what's, if that's how you have to get there,
Well, you could go up.
You can go around, you can go
McClellan.
through Miami
McClellan.
Township down Price Road,
You could go
It would be
28 to McClellan.
enforcement.
28 to McClellan down Price, yeah, down McClellan.
So then the question goes, I'll go back to my other thing. What stops Evans then from just driving up and down Cleveland?
Well, they have to be delivering mulch or something.
So if they were just delivering mulch anywhere in
If they were
Milford?
delivering mulch to my house, I would think they could come down Cleveland. I mean, it is a
Yeah,
through
they
street.
deliver mulch in my neighborhood all the time.
Well,
I think that's fine, Sandy. That's fine that they deliver. I think the
But
whole
see, but they
point
could drive all
is-
the way around the highway and come in the other way to
We've
see
that's
and
what-
not go down
given
Cleveland.
tickets to people for doing that. We've ticketed Evans for doing that, going through South Milford.
Unless they're delivering mulch.
Well, if they're delivering mulch there, they can be there, but they just can't cut through there to go from their place in Round Bottom to Main Street, Milford.
Because that's what they would probably do, right? If they were allowed to just do it, they would always drive, I would, if I would own that, just drive through Cleveland there.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and that,
It's a through street.
again, I'm not taking a position one way or another, I'm just explaining it, the different options available to council. I don't think a big Evans truck loaded with mulch rumbling through South Milford, any other street in Milford, unless they're delivering there, that's a safety issue to me.
Correct.
And whenever we know about it, we've cited them. I don't have a problem prosecuting those people.
this, I guess in my mind, I'm trying to decide, so if they're delivering to Mound or Cleveland or Laurel, like where do you draw the line that makes them drive all the way around? So if I'm delivering mulch on Cleveland, I'm allowed, but if I'm delivering on Laurel, do I have to drive all the way around the highway and?
I don't,
Yeah.
you're
That's
in
what
that same,
that's what
you're in
he's
that same
saying.
neighborhood, though.
That's what he's saying. Where do you draw the neighborhood line, I guess, is now what I'm getting confused about. 'Cause he said they can't bring mulch to Main Street, so they can't bring it to Main Street, but they can bring it to Laurel or Mound or.
I just have to have
Yeah, down
something I can
highway.
enforce. I have to have something that I can delineate and be definite on as to what we're gonna prosecute, and what we're gonna ticket, and what we're gonna do.
If it's like the other day, there were excavation trucks going from High Street
Right, down
down
Riverside.
Pasadena, down Riverside, back
Again
and
and
forth.
again and again.
All day long, all day long. But that was for a purposeful reason of going from one to the other. There was a purpose in doing that. They were within the city of Milford. There was a purpose.
Where were they
But
going from
They were,
Riverside to?
they were going from High Street
That guy, I forget,
down
into
They
Clark
dumping?
Street takes
yeah, they were
fill.
dumping on the
Oh,
river, on the, their fill.
Okay.
But they were huge dump trucks going, but it was a purpose that they were, that makes sense, right? To
They
come
have a-
through Pasadena, go to Riverside, to go, I don't think anyone's gonna complain for that route. Nobody's gonna say, oh, well, you have to drive up 28, down 50, around.
I think if we pass this, they can.
I think they can get a one-time permit, correct, for a day thing if they needed
Qualify for a
to.
permit to
For
do that.
qualifications. to do that. This is eliminating people just from
People aren't
using
gonna do that.
back
No.
and forth.
That's what I'm saying, if they could, if they pass it.
Right.
So confused.
It would be people.
So as it's written now, though, let's just go back. So as it's written currently right now,
They're not supposed to anyway.
they're not supposed to, Scenic River is not supposed to be driving down Cleveland, correct? How it's written right now.
Is the one I'm gonna read tonight, that's the one you're talking about?
No, the one, on the books right now, the existence right now.
Have they been breaking the law for 30 years? Yes. According to her, yes.
They would not be able to use it, right?
I know, I'm
And
just.
as it's
so
written now,
currently
it's
they
10,000
can't use it.
And as
For
it's written now, it's
clarification.
10,000 pounds.
And that would exclude their little
That would
buses.
exclude the little buses as well.
What is it?
What's that?
Yes.
Your little bus is over 10,000 pounds?
No, they're all under. They're 10,000 and under.
10,000,
On
okay.
purpose.
Well, I'm talking
Yeah,
about the big
smart,
buses.
smart.
On purpose.
Right, so this eliminates the big buses, the full size.
Which
I
they
guess I'm
can't do
just
right now
confused about
anyway.
everything else besides, I'm not worried about their buses, I'm worried about everything else. All right.
Well,
It's
again,
about
I'm just
complaints.
pointing out the options. I don't care. I honestly don't care what we do. But if I get a call from somebody saying, I've got this big dump truck, why aren't you guys writing tickets? Why aren't you prosecuting? Why aren't your cops doing it? Why aren't you, city law director, prosecuting these people? I have to point to somebody, something definitive. I'm not concerned about commercial business outside of Milford who has to spend extra money for gas, or, that's not my concern. My concern is a safety issue, and these big, huge dump trucks, a big moving van going through some of these small streets, that to me is a safety issue.
And that's our concern, or should be our concern as council.
And that's my job, is to look out for the safety of our citizens. And you really have to tell me what I'm gonna do here to do that.
Well, I'm worried about safety, I'm just thinking, okay, like if I want to run a moving van, do I have to get a special permit from the city to drive it?
Technically, right now, then you would.
On the street.
Even now at 10,000 pounds.
Well, what's the problem with that? It's
It's
only
just-
$10.
Well, it's
Just if
just,
it's enforcement.
it's not a problem, I'm not moving, but.
Yeah, so Kyle makes
Somebody-
a, Kyle
what I'm
makes a good
saying-
point.
Somebody on my street.
Right now,
I'm
the
looking
The
out for
law
all
as
my
it
residents
stands
on my
right now,
street.
At law, as it's, if we don't change anything,
Right
a
now.
moving van is still illegal if it's
Yeah.
just cutting across.
Yeah, we're
It
not
takes
changing
somebody
anything.
calling and saying, I don't like this, and
they're
then
not
they go
cutting,
enforce it,
they're
or
moving.
a police officer
Okay,
being
I'm ready
there
to
and
vote.
stopping them, going, where are you going? If you're not on this street, they can give them a ticket, but it's just a matter of enforcement. So,
and like the law director said, the real reason we're voting is 'cause we're making all the vehicle weights. That was the big part of this
Yeah.
too, right? All the vehicle weights are concurrent
yeah,
for each of the
everything will be the
ordinances.
same.
So even
So
if we
either way,
do-
it's still the same as what's on the books right now, just a different weight.
Yes, exactly. So either way, nothing, yeah, it's just the weight. Thank you,
Well,
Kyle.
We haven't intentionally ignored
I'm not
the
saying,
law.
yeah.
Oh, I know
yeah.
that. I'm just saying, we haven't intentionally ignored it, because until recently, it hasn't been a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody ready to read 81?
Sure.
I have a splitting headache.
So do
Okay,
I.
let's read.
Yeah, don't forget to suspend the rules.
What?
Don't forget to suspend
I
the
won't.
rules.
Lisa will,
Oh.
right.
I will.
2020, ordinance 2021-81, an ordinance amending section 339.02 of the codified ordinances of the city of Milford regarding use of local streets. Now therefore be it ordained by the council of the municipality of Milford, section 1. The council of the city of Milford hereby amends section 339.02A of the codified ordinances of the city of Milford to read as follows. A, no person shall operate a vehicle exceeding a size specified in section 339.03 or exceeding a gross vehicle weight rating of 14,000 pounds upon any street in the city other than a designated state or federal route, except those local streets designated as a truck route and marked as such by the appropriate signage. Drivers of such vehicles may provide services to and may deliver to and pick up from goods or property not located on such designated truck routes, which is a local street, or may visit commercial establishments for the purpose of eating, refueling, or conducting such other necessary business, provided such commercial establishment provides adequate off-street parking to accommodate such vehicles, and provided such vehicles are only operated in a reasonable way between the designated route and the place of delivery, pickup, service, or such commercial establishment, or is otherwise directed by a police officer, or may perform any such legitimate business or act other than passage through the city. School buses, as defined by Section 331.05, shall be expressly exempt from the limitations imposed by this section. Section 2, the Council of the City of Milford hereby amends the 5th paragraph of Section 339.02B of the codified ordinances of the City of Milford to read as follows. Signs shall be posted indicating no through trucks, gross vehicle weight 14,000 pounds, or words of similar import to apprise drivers of the limitations imposed by this section. No driver shall disobey the instruction indicated on any such sign. Section 3, all other portions of Section 339.02 not expressly amended herein shall remain in full force and effect. This ordinance amends and supersedes any and all ordinances, resolutions, rules, or regulations which are clearly inconsistent herewith. Section 4, pursuant to, in accordance with Section 12.05 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance should become effective immediately upon its passage by City Council.
Move to suspend the rules and read by title only.
Second?
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-81, an ordinance amending Section 339.02 of the codified ordinances of the City of Milford regarding use of local streets.
Motion to adopt.
Second?
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-82, an ordinance authorizing the City of Milford to An ordinance authorizing the City of Milford to execute a contract with the Claremont County Health District Advisory Council for the provision of public health services for 2022. Now therefore be ordained by the Council of the Municipality of Milford, Section 1, the Council of the City of Milford, pursuant to Section 337.09.08 of the Ohio Revised Code and the Charter of the City of Milford, hereby authorize the city manager to enter into and execute a contract with Claremont County District Advisory Council whereby the City of Milford shall pay to the Claremont County General Health District the sum of $29,349.11 for 1 year of public health services beginning January 1st, 2022. Said sum to be payable semi-annually in May and November. The public health service to be provided pursuant to said contract are those that are required by the Ohio Revised Code and the Ohio Sanitary Code and all other authorized services similar to those which Claremont County General Health District provides for its district. The terms and conditions said contract shall be and hereby are incorporated herein by reference pursuant to in accordance with Section 12.03 of the Milford City Charter. Section 2, pursuant to in accordance with Section 12.05 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance should become effective immediately upon its passage by City Council.
Move to suspend the rules and read by title only.
Second.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-82, an ordinance authorizing the City of Milford to execute a contract with the Claremont County Health District Advisory Council for the provision of public health services for 2022.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-83, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with J.K. Muir Company for the paving of Terrell and Jonas Parks. Now therefore be ordained by the Council of the Municipality of Milford, Section 1. The Council of the City of Milford hereby authorizes the city manager to enter into and execute the agreement with J.K. Muir Company for the asphalt paving of Terrell and Jonas Parks for the contract amount of $23,755. Terms and conditions said agreement are fully incorporated and by reference pursuant to and in accordance with Section 12.03 of the Milford City Charter. Section 2, pursuant to in accordance with Section 12.05 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage by City Council.
Move to suspend the rules and read by title only.
Second?
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-83, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with J.K. Muir Company for the paving of Terrell and Jonas Parks.
Motion to adopt.
Second?
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-84, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Branstetter Carroll for engineering services for the Wallace Avenue Water Tower Discharge Supply Line. Now therefore be ordained by the Council of the Municipality of Milford, Section 1. The Council of the City of Milford hereby authorizes the city manager to enter into and execute an agreement with Branstetter Carroll for the provision of engineering services associated with the Wallace Avenue Water Tower to Garfield Avenue Discharge Supply Line for the contract amount of $36,500. Terms and conditions of the said agreement are fully incorporated herein by reference pursuant to and in accordance with Section 12.03 of the Milford City Charter, Section 2. Pursuant to and in accordance with Section 12.05 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance should become effective immediately upon its passage by City Council.
Move to suspend the rules and read by title only.
Second.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-84, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Branstetter Carroll for engineering services for the Wallace Avenue Water Tower Discharge Supply Line.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Is there any old business we need to discuss? All right. Thank you all for your participation this evening. Lots of good discussions tonight. It's definitely one of those nights where we definitely failed in making everybody happy. So on behalf of all of us, we apologize.
Damned
Can I-
if you do, damned if you don't.
Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Haskins?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Thank you and good night.